Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello. Welcome to season... Oh, it's been so long. Season 22, episode 4 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
Stork, I just found my mic. Adam told me where my mic was. He's like, is that yours? I'm like, it's been a while.
We got it.
I forgot.
And I'm Adam.
In this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, we're going to be talking about code GMing and kind of a different way of doing code GMing. Jonas Larson sends us an email. Stephen from Atlanta sends praise and ideas for 10 candles. And Matt asks about con game etiquette, specifically when to bail. I'm assuming that involves maybe at least a partial horse.
Yes.
Oh, let's hope so. Yeah. Really. God.
But first, before we begin, if you'd like to email us, and we could use emails, so we haven't gotten very many in a while now. In fact, in the last 2 weeks, I don't think I've gotten any.
You know what, though? Can I just say, for let's just, I'm going to make up a number and a statistic, but let's say for every 1,000 people that listen, one person decides to write in.
It's more than that.
It's astonishing to me because I listen to a couple of podcasts and things, and it never occurs to me to even write in, ever. Who would be interested in anything that I have to say or ask? So I'm amazed at how many people write in, so keep doing it. Please do it.
Please.
It's awesome.
It's really hard work to come up with topics otherwise.
Right?
But if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We're also on the social meteors.
Yes.
Twitter.
Not the social asteroids.
No.
Twitter, Instagram, the face bag
Yeah.
at happyjacksrpg, all one word.
Yes.
Thank you. That wasn't that funny. Thank you.
No, it was funny.
Not that social media
Can we
is
keep him around for the courtesy laugh?
Of course, absolutely.
Awesome. He still thinks I'm funny, Stu.
It's true.
I think
do.
you're hysterical.
What?
I think Stork is funny.
I think he's lying.
No,
Funny.
I do. I think Stork is funny.
You're just not saying looking at the end of it. I think Stork is funny.
Looking, yeah.
I was going to say funny big nose.
Oh. I'm sorry, Stork. Stu's mean to you.
I am.
That's all right.
It's been 25 years. He's used to it.
I can.
Yeah.
I'm married with kids. He can't hurt me. Do your worst.
He's married with 2 daughters.
Oh, my God.
3, actually. But
3
yeah.
daughters, yeah.
Good Lord.
Count my adopted.
Yeah.
Oh,
Teenage daughters.
Teenage.
Yeah. Fortunately, only one of them is, but that's all right. Moving on.
You can also, if you'd like to watch us live, you can go to happyjacks.org/live, and we record the show at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Friday nights. And, of course, we have all of our actual plays on Sundays and Mondays and some Wednesdays and some Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And
We're kind of all over the place right now. There is a schedule, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go to happyjacks.org/schedule.
it's not quite complete, but there is a schedule.
Yes.
You're right. I have to add Bloodbane and Tusk.
I think if you go under Watch, this is where the schedule is now. So if you just go to happyjacks.org and couldn't remember the rest, and I think you go to Watch, the schedule is at the top of that because I checked it recently because I didn't know what games I was doing and when it was. So I myself check our actual schedule to find out what I'm doing.
As do I.
Thank you, Kimmy.
good job, Kimmy.
Well, I look on Saturdays. Is this Saturday there's a game, or can I walk around in my underwear? No
okay.
game. So I'm walking around in my underwear.
Thank you.
Wait, Kimmy, what was your title that people came up with? Mistress of...
Sultana of Organization.
Yes, Sultana of Organization. Yes. I love that.
My coworkers actually, for my end of the year gift, gave me a T-shirt that says "Spreadsheet Queen." Like it's actually a piece of clothing I own now. I'm like, yes.
Yes. I love it.
And on Sunday is session 0 of Bloodblade and Tusk.
Yes.
Rah.
Also, if you want to get Moment of Truth, the core rules, there's no setting to it. It's available. You can go to momentoftruthRPG.com, or you can go to DriveThruRPG, and there's a pay what you want option. And it's okay to pay 0 if you want.
And what is Moment of Truth?
That is the
Stuart?
role-playing game that I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
Oh.
And the first edition is done.
What's your elevator pitch on Moment of Truth, Stu?
It's a role-playing game that's kind of the role-playing game that I would like to play.
There you go. It's surprisingly rules light for somebody who says he likes to play on the bottom of a pile of crunch.
The last few revisions got a little crunchier. I added combat conditions. I also added
Spells crunch it up.
The magic system, but that's not published yet. I also added. They're not called traits, but for weapons. So some weapons are unwieldy or balanced or quick or suppressive, like an M60 machine gun. Just simply hearing it makes it difficult.
And are you asking for feedback since you posted it?
Oh no, it's published.
All right.
It's done.
I
So
mean,
don't give me feedback.
if you want to give me feedback for the second edition, you can do that, because there are some things. Of course, as soon as it's done, it's like what's the saying? No poetry is finished; it's only abandoned.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's kind of what it's like. I'm just going to put it to bed, and I already have notes on revisions that I'd
Probably
make.
true with my children too.
Yeah. No
All right.
RPG is finished. It's only waiting for its next edition.
Exactly.
It's only waiting for the editor to finish their job.
Right.
They really shouldn't call them editions. They should call them drafts.
Right.
D&D first draft, D&D second
D&D,
draft.
D&D.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so co-GMing.
Yeah.
Now let me kind of because we've talked about this 3 or 4 times in the
Yeah.
past, I think, and we've talked about co-GMing, having 2 GMs all the time.
Right, but it's just the way like,
You
like
and-
Dave and I have done it, which is
Yeah.
we'll just sort of together, and one of us will do something, and the other, but it's sort of it's like an improv comedy thing where we both work off each other, and then the outcomes as one was
And-
one of mine.
But there's even prior to the game,
yes,
there's a division of work
Yeah.
with regards to
well,
prep.
but there's at least a plotting session together where we get together and work stuff and hand stuff, and you do this and I'll do this and we'll try this, and okay, and we have there's at least some ground rules. That would be my phone.
Haha. The
Apparently we're live.
the way I'd always heard about it before was especially with D&D, there's so much prep and so much research and stuff, and so there would be one person who was kind of leading the game, and then another person doing all the rules lookups and organizing the monsters and sometimes playing NPCs and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
When I've done it in the past, I've only done it a few times. When Dave and I did it, he basically mostly ran the game.
Mm-hmm.
My contribution was mostly in prep, and we had a OneDrive document that both of us could look at, and I would sit and add a bunch of stuff in it, and he would. Oh, you want some more chocolate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bring the whole bag down here, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's farther away from me now.
And but I also co-GM'd with Bill when we ran the GURPS fantasy thing, the Eldemy game that switched systems too many
You've
times.
done a couple of. Well, you also did a Champions game at a con with co-GMing
Yeah,
with him.
yeah.
And you've done it in the past as well.
But in that Eldemy game, we really kind of divided on almost like GM who's fan of the characters and the adversary GM.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Because Bill ran the combats,
Yeah.
whereas I was mostly about the narrative parts of things, and when a combat would happen, I don't know, at least for me, because if you are fans of the characters, sometimes it's kind of hard to be the ruthless bad guy who's going after the characters and
Right.
really wants to try to kill them.
Yeah.
So
And Bill's a motherfucker and really good with tactics and strategy.
Oh, nice.
It's
I'm-
just yeah.
I'm a shit tactician.
I have finally met Bill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I met Bill a week or two ago when he was
Don't
here.
don't let his nice jolly demeanor fool you.
Yeah. He was very pleasant. Yeah.
No, it's all a ruse.
But that was kind of an interesting division, because it's really hard for me when I'm really invested in the game and I have become a fan of the characters to actually kill them. It's I won't do those really ruthless things that Bill had no hesitation in doing. He's like, I'm going to make a called shot for his eyes. I'm going to try to blind this guy.
Because tactically speaking, that's the right move to do.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you got to figure these people are in combat for their lives. They're going to want to come out ahead.
And especially when I've run D&D, I find that to be a real problem or a weakness that I have as a DM, because I will generally because of the PBTA focus that I tend to have, being a fan of the characters is a huge thing for me. And so when I try to switch over to something like Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm supposed to be the DM, it's really hard for me to play that adversarial role. And I do pull my punches in combat, in order to let them shine, and it makes it too easy for them sometimes.
When you water it down.
Yeah. And I have those moments when I'm running D&D where I'm like, oh, I know what the tactical best move is, but I could kill every single character right now.
Right.
But you can't really
Yeah.
in D&D. Well, depending on which
Yeah.
edition, but really you can.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
just piss your players off, but you
Right.
can't actually kill them
Exactly. Yeah.
without a lot of work.
Right.
I mean, in 4th edition, you can deplete their dailies and
Yes.
all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Right.
5th edition, you got those death rolls, and those,
Yeah.
it's a monumental effort to actually have a character die.
Yeah. Although I played the a couple of sessions of the Tomb of Annihilation in the meat grinder mode, which is where the death saves are it's a DC 15 instead of a DC 10. So it's much more likely you're going to die.
Oh, are there
Yeah.
saves versus death in that?
Yeah, so basically, when you're reduced to 0 hit points, you get 3 death saves. So
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So every round, for every round you roll, and if you accumulate if you accumulate 3 successes before 3 failures, then you stabilize and you're going to be okay. If you get 3 failures before 3 saves, then you die.
That was
So,
a
like,
4E
you just
thing,
did.
I think, as well. Didn't we
I-
have that as
it
a
might
saves
have-
in 4E?
I don't remember.
I
It
seem
never
to-
got
I
to
seem
that
to remember
point. I could
rolling-
never get
yeah.
hit points ground down enough where it mattered.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, 4th edition was really, really easy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's. I kind of like it because there is that sort of tension of the roll, and it is just a straight roll and a 50-50 chance.
Right.
And if somebody gets to you in time and saves you,
Right.
you're fine. But it can be a really nice tense thing. But I'm I do games to tell stories, and so for me, the idea of killing characters should only be done if it's really going to be an amazing moment in the story.
Right.
And so I tend to not play, or especially when I'm GMing, I tend to not GM in a way that I'm trying to kill the characters. I'm just trying to make it really hard for them to succeed.
Right.
But they are I do kind of always plan that they are going to succeed one way or another.
Right. And you want combat to have drama in it. It can't.
Yeah.
It's not going to have
Right.
drama unless there's an actual real danger of death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So do you think that having that second person who is kind of more bloodthirsty, I guess, like, is a help or a hindrance in those situations? Getting back to co-jamming.
I think it made for a more honest combat. It wouldn't. I wouldn't, because basically they were fighting a bunch of small demons plus one sort of greater demon, and that greater demon could deal a lot of damage, and he didn't completely blind. Like, I think he partially blinded Tyler's character.
Yeah.
and that was.
But that was a great moment.
Oh yeah, it was, and it's not something I think I would have done
No.
if I was solo GMing.
Right, and it ended up being something that carried through the rest of the campaign.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because he ended up losing an eye.
And that's like a sacred. That's like
Yeah.
a sacred wound for an orc because Grumsh has one eye, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice.
So it ended up being this thing where other people later blinded themselves to also be part of the group. So
Nice.
it ended up being a huge
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
It's
So,
just
I
what
don't know.
Tyler's always wanted. He had a cult following him.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but now you guys have done something that I've never heard of before, which is you are GMing separately.
Yes.
Like one of you is playing a character and the other one is GMing
In the same game.
in the same
Yes.
game. Which from session to
Amazing.
session, I've heard of that sort of like a round robin GMing.
Yeah.
But you guys are actually switching seats in the middle of one session,
Yeah.
and that's something I've never heard of.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I'm currently co-running the Monster Hearts game here on Happy Jacks every other Monday night, and I'm co-running this with Mac. And so when we first started talking about this game, there was discussion about who was going to run it, because we both really wanted to play, but we were also both really excited about running and totally willing to run. And so what we settled on was, okay, we'll co-GM this. And we got together and we brainstormed about setting ideas, and then we did the session 0. And our plan was we will, Mac would start out and run about 2 or 3 sessions in a story arc, and then that arc would come to a conclusion, and then I would take over and run 2 or 3 sessions. And we would both make player characters, and and while she was GMing, her player character would be an NPC, and while I was GMing, my character would become an NPC. So so they would both get some time. Both characters would get some time, but they wouldn't really be any kind of focus or get to roll or anything like that when when the person playing them is in the GM seat.
That's kind of a more traditional sort of round robin GM.
Yes, yeah, and this is something that I've done with Jason Mills several times. We've done it for D&D. We've done it for several PBTA games. We did it for some Star Wars games and Masks game.
For those of you who want to catch up, Jason Mills is running Demigods currently on Happy Jacks. He's the guy with the mohawk.
Just concluded, yes, yeah. And
everybody.
So Jason and I started gaming together about 3 years ago when we first met, and we both fell in love with Masks when it came out. I ran the beta at a little mini con at our Nerd Strong gym that Kimmy organized, and Jason was going to run a different game, and nobody signed up for his game, and so
Aww.
I know we were sad.
Stu
But
ran a game at that one.
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
Yeah,
oh, you did? Oh, I can't believe I didn't meet you then.
Oh, he was the fat one in the gym.
That was the fact, yeah. How many could there be? Right?
That's why everybody avoided it.
No, we are a gym for nerds. There are lots of fat people, and it's awesome because
Sorry, Stu. It was a cheap shot, but
It's just like
also this was when I first started, so I was fat then too. So, but anyway, nobody had signed up for Jason's Wild Talents game that he was going to run. So he jumped over because I was running Masks. It was in the beta version, and so he jumped over and played Masks with us. And at the end of it, he was like, "What is this powered by the apocalypse thing that has changed my life?
It was shiny. I've never seen."
So, and he realized like this was the system he'd been waiting for his whole life, and now he's written a PBTA game.
Well, I was going to say, not only did he get a glass of Kool-Aid, he's like bought the whole factory.
Oh yeah, he's got his own new
call.
call. And,
I'll take credit for that too.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Kimmy gets credit for a lot of stuff right now. No, totally deserved. But yeah, so
together.
so we started a Masks home game, and Kimmy played with us in that several times. And Jason was starting as the GM, but he also wanted to play, and so after a few sessions, he came to kind of a natural story arc conclusion, and I don't remember whose idea it was, but I'm like, I'll take over. I'll GM for a story arc, and then that way you can play your character a little more. Or actually, it was vice versa. I started as the GM, and then he took over for the second story arc, and so I created a new character and jumped in there. But yeah, and then we would just kind of flip, and then every 2 or 3 sessions, when a story arc kind of came to a natural transition, we would flip over, and so I would do one front and he would do the other. So I tended to focus on the adult super team that was trying to exercise control over the teenage superheroes, and then he would focus on the evil corporation that was the source of several of our characters' powers.
Okay.
So we kind of ran separate.
You kind of had your own domains.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so I didn't really deal a whole lot with the corporation, and he didn't really deal a whole lot with the adult super team, but we would kind of reference it once in a while. And we were doing this Dungeons and Dragons game at the same time where we were co-GMing with another friend of ours. So there were 3 of us kind of rotating out DM duties. So for me, when we started talking about co-GMs on the Monster Hearts game, it was just natural. It was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. I've done it several times now, and but I put it to Mac that, like, let's do this thing that Jason and I have done. Like, you have a front and I have a front, and then when I'm in the GM seat, we'll focus on my story arc, and when you're in the GM seat, we'll focus on yours, and we'll switch off every few episodes. So she ran the first session, and then the second session, she was like, her work had gotten insane, and she was exhausted, and she's like, "Would you like to take over, maybe, so you help?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, like I got you." And so I switched off, and it was just so natural. Like it just kind of worked, and it allowed her character to very much more quickly come into the story and interact with the characters. And there was this moment when so she had gotten back in the GM seat, and Tappy's character went to visit her character, and I'm like, oh, I know what to do here, and so I'm like, she should get to do this.
Not have it handled as an NPC.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, let's really get into this scene because it's such a great idea, and so I'm like, can I jump in as GM here? And she's like, sure. And it just kind of fit. And then the next session, I was in the GMC, and there was this moment for my character that another PC initiated, and she's like, I got it. And she's like, I think you need to roll. Like, and it just kind of naturally developed. So now we're trading off who's in the main seat, and and leading the introductions and working the focus, trading off session by session. But we've just come to recognize those moments in the story when it's time for the person GMing, their character needs to be front and center for a scene or two, and so we'll just take over from this scene.
First of all, I have to say that's very, very observant of both of you. You guys are both open to that moment, and you're not. Neither of you are hogging it. Neither of you are writing scripts. Neither of you are playing. And maybe that's part of Powered by the Apocalypse, which is it's really player driven.
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, I've never run Powered by the Apocalypse games, but I've played a couple, and it seems to be there seems to be a lot of symmetry when it comes to collaboration.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, everyone's putting things in. There's not a lot of secrets.
Right.
There's not a lot of GM prep that he has to keep.
Well,
going.
that's my point. A lot of stuff is being created at the table in that moment.
Most RPGs are more asymmetrically collaborative, where you've got the GM who has, these are the plans the bad guys have. I'm keeping this stuff close to the vest. I'm not letting them out because I want to surprise them.
Right.
Right? And it's two entirely different ways of doing a role-playing game. I don't know if that would work.
Well,
in a more traditional
That's
game.
what I was going to ask. How do you keep metagaming from happening? And I don't know if there is such a thing in Powered by the Apocalypse. Really.
There is.
Sort of, yeah.
Because if you're privy to information and both you and Mac know, how do you keep that from influencing the game?
I mean, you have to be fucking adults.
Well,
right.
You have to just be like...
It's not as simple as that.
No, but you have to actually be cognizant of, hey, I know this, but my character doesn't, which actually sometimes, there can be times where I've played other games like D&D and stuff where I've made guesses that I don't think my character would guess. Where I almost feel like that was more metagaming than in a Powered by the Apocalypse game where I knew what was happening, but I'm like, okay, my character does not know this is happening. What would my character do in this situation not knowing that?
But there's the problem of Schrodinger's metagaming.
Right, but you're never going to completely lose that because we're at
cats
the
come and
table.
tell you what's going on?
The only way, and let me just describe what I mean by that.
Okay, thank you.
If I'm a player in a game and another player has a secret, my character doesn't know the secret, but I have either figured it out or overheard it during character creation or accidentally found out about it as a player, I start second guessing myself on, would I have come up with this thing that I want to do right now if I didn't have that information? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's difficult to know if you are either subconsciously metagaming. I mean, honest, actual, real, fucked up metagaming. None of our players.
Most.
Right.
And that's
most
easy to
people-
spot. And
Yes.
But that it's that second guessing which can, I think, cause the character of the player who has the knowledge he's not supposed to have to actually play that character in a more obtuse way than they would,
Possibly.
because they don't want to metagame, or they don't want to be seen as metagaming.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll even err on the side of dumbness, where the character may have been something that they could have.
It gives me a
Right,
whole
and-
new respect for R2 because he knew everything all
Right?
this time
Right?
and
All the
never
time.
told
Never-
anyone.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, I think
he
also,
could have metagamed it.
well, I think also part of that is that's also player agency. Like they get
Yes.
to play as obtuse as they want. Like if they think that's how that character would play it, then who are we to say that that's not
I'm
correct?
not.
Right,
No,
yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that this is not something where people are going to judge the player. It's the
No.
player judging themselves.
Or the
Yeah.
even the
Is what I'm
GM,
talking
yeah.
Well,
Right.
and I think there, there's this certain element of the more traditional role playing games where you're supposed to not try to how do I say that? Well, so there's a difference in the collaboration of the story. So in traditional role-playing games, there is a story that the GM knows that the players are supposed to figure out. In Powered by the Apocalypse and some of the other story games, there is a collaboration of the story. And the GM doesn't know any more about how the story's going to go than the player
It's
does.
a very fluid thing
And-
at the
yeah.
table.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, truly is.
And-
That's,
yeah.
I've started running all my games that way though. And
Yes.
I've done it with Wild Talents.
Yeah.
I've done it I don't think it's necessarily the mechanics of the
Right.
game aren't necessary that way. Like there's
Yeah.
a couple occasions where you need to have a bad guy, and in some systems it's harder to do that in others
Uh-huh.
to just come up with one. But most systems have at least in Wild Talents there's that encyclopedia in the back of different types of characters. I usually have all of that printed out, all different levels of generic characters that I can just skin whatever the people come into.
Yeah.
My Laser Ponies game that I ran fairly recently, which unfortunately the audio is terrible on, so we weren't able to post it.
Boo.
But all of that was just created Powered by the Apocalypse style, at the table.
Yeah.
What's his name? Okay, cool. And it was all made up as
Yeah.
we went along.
Well, and we've talked about this. I've talked about this with I think at least all three of you at some point or another. But they're good GMs do this with traditional games
Absolutely.
too. Stu has talked about doing this where. That your plan is not going to work because there are players involved and they always fuck up the plans. So a good GM is always ready to
Right.
jump in and improvise and change the story to suit what the players are doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's just for me, I love Powered by the Apocalypse because it just works the way my brain works. So it's very easy for me in a way that D&D isn't as easy for me.
Okay, I have some questions
Yeah.
for you because I'm still trying to grok this whole playing GMing, that fluid thing. I was
Yeah.
actually watching the show at one point,
Uh-huh.
and Mac was GMing, and then somehow you were GMing, and I didn't
Yeah.
even notice it changing. And I'm like, wait a minute! It was the most astonishing
Was
thing
there
I've ever seen.
ceremony where you took your mics off and switched chairs?
The
No, we
robes
just-
didn't exchange.
we stay there,
There was
yeah.
no bloodletting. I mean, it was
Right,
just,
yeah.
it was just this. It was like all of a sudden Adam was telling everybody what to do, and I'm like, what just
Yeah.
happened? Okay, so.
When you started gymming, did someone physically take your dice away
Right.
from you?
No,
No,
and actually,
there was a look or something, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden Adam was starting to tell the story, and everybody went
yeah.
and watched him, and he was just, and the next thing, and then fluidly went back to Mac, who picked it back up, and there was none of this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Right.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Because because normally when that guy opens his mouth and starts telling people what to do, you're like, get the fuck out of here.
Right, yeah,
He's
yeah.
that douchebag player, but
Right, yeah.
but
yeah.
but
in this game, in this particular circumstance,
it worked.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions because
Okay, great.
I'm assuming there was a world building and a conference where you and Mac palavered
Yes.
ahead of time. So I'm assuming that you're burdened with knowledge that you have to be very careful that you don't let the other players know. How do you keep? how do you put that buffer between what you know and what your player knows?
I'm going to guess you guys don't have any long-term plans.
That's it.
Well-
so this is actually the key is that base assumption is actually incorrect.
Aha!
We don't
I
know what the
knew it.
long-term plan is.
Wrong about everything.
But yeah, it was so. We got together, and Mac is a super planner. Like Mac loves to have.
That's why I like her.
Yeah, right.
She
Yeah,
and I are
Yeah, and she's got all these different like story trees planned out, and she knows no matter what they do, she's got a way to deal with it.
I even overplanned for her game. She had to shut me down. That's how much of an overplanner I am.
Right? Yeah. And she, so we got together and we had a little get together, and we just talked about like what are some good setting ideas, and like where should we put it, and what time period, and and what kind of mood do we want, and stuff like that. And so we settled on the setting basically, and then like she kept kind of wanting to like plan more, and she's like, I'm really nervous, I haven't planned more, and I'm like,
oh honey,
I'm pretty sure she was frustrated with me because I'm like, you don't need to, it's fine,
It'll be fine.
Yeah, and she's like, but planning, and I'm like,
but that's my safety
yeah,
net.
I'm like, I don't care, I don't want to plan.
I totally used to be that person.
Yeah, and so
still that person.
Yeah, and so we started, and she's like, this is gonna go crappy. I haven't planned anything. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, no, it's gonna be awesome. And afterwards, she's like, oh my god, I didn't plan anything, and it was still fun.
I was going to say, that does not show when you watch the show. It does not show at all.
She is so good. She is so intuitive about story.
And
it's amazing.
But she has not GM'd a lot.
Yeah.
So
I was shocked.
right?
She's
Yeah.
so
Right.
good.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a book I read a long time ago. It came out. I think it's from Gnome Stew, or it's Phil Vecchione, who's guested on the show before, called Never Unprepared, and it's about GM prep.
Oh, okay.
And I read that book when he gave me a review copy of it, and I came to the realization I prepped too much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I prepped way too much.
We've
I need
talked
to
about
just
this numerous times.
Have a very
Yeah.
vague story idea of what's going to happen, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, have some bad guys if you're in a system where you can't improvise.
And we talk about this a lot.
stats,
We
stuff
use
like
the
that.
wizard's tower, and it's like you give them a wizard and you give them a tower, and you say, they're like, well, I was supposed to get into it. I don't know. That's up to you.
That's
Right,
not
yeah.
my problem.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
because if you over prep
Yeah.
it, you're going to make maps and labyrinths and manticores and flying
Right,
all
yeah.
of that stuff. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Then you fall into the one right answer.
Yes,
problem.
Right.
exactly.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and like the pixel hunting kind of issue, like oh, you didn't check for traps in that corner, so you guys totally missed the main story.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why are we fucking playing? Like,
yeah.
but yeah, and see, Stork, that is like to me anyway. That's powered by the apocalypse. I don't.
But it's not. It's
But-
you guys GMing Powered by the Apocalypse. Because I also have played Powered by the Apocalypse with people who are not that freeform with it. And it still works.
Yeah.
It doesn't have like as much of the vibe that I like, the collaborative vibe that can happen with that. But I think Powered by the Apocalypse does a great job of encouraging that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a GMing style that people can use and develop no matter what system
yeah.
they're using.
Right. Yeah.
Because you guys are GMing without a net.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally without a net.
And okay, right there is
Yeah.
a bold statement, right? How do you convince people that they can do this without a net?
Well, and I think I would love to have Mac address that question because to me it was just
Well, for her, it was a big transition.
right. Yeah. Whereas for me it was kind of like, this is what I've been doing for a couple of years now in games, and so and I would love to hear what she has to say about how that's transitioned. But she's we talk about this frequently, and she's like so comfortable now. She's like, I get this. I know how it works. And she's like, how much do you want me to tell you about what I was thinking about this? So there's this. There was this moment. So we spent 4 sessions on a 12-hour period. We're playing in real time.
Yeah,
sometimes.
but I know, but it's riveting.
Yeah.
I've watched them.
Oh, good.
It's
I'm glad.
riveting.
But there was this moment where Tappy and Mac's character show up to the party, and Tappy's character notices a dude standing at the bottom of the basement stairs, staring at a door, and her dark power is go down there, help him. And she's like, no, the girl I am in love with just ran outside. I'm going to do that. And she's like, I'm not taking that bait. And so I'm like, okay, well, so she's not going to go and investigate this thing that I was gonna lead her to some really awful things. But the next session, like Mac had no idea what I was planning on it, what character that was at the bottom of the door, at the bottom of the
It
stairs.
was just a person.
Yeah, it was just a person. Mac took that, and the next session, she's like, Gina, you notice that there's a door at the bottom of the basement stairs that's calling
See,
to you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and
That's beautiful.
And the thing she turned it into was exactly what I was going to turn it into, and we did not communicate about it at all. She's like, "Was that okay? What I did?" I'm like, "That's exactly what I was going to do. So of course it's okay."
What, did
Like,
you read my notes?
I know, yeah.
Did
yeah.
you hack my iPod?
Now let me ask you:
Yeah.
if it had been different, or if you had, let's say you had thought, "Oh, my idea was better,"
No.
would
Right.
that would?
You know
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
That's a key
And-
point because
yeah.
leaving your ego at the door may be
Yeah.
a,
Sure.
maybe a thing.
Because it was slightly different to what I was going to do, but yeah, it was leaving my ego. Like I don't care what was actually down there.
Right.
What mattered to me was that there was a story hook down there, and what that story hook is, it doesn't matter as long as it's fun for for the characters.
Sure.
And so and she. So I was just going to have it be this thing with introducing a new NPC and kind of like or a couple of new NPCs and like getting Tappy's character more into like the magic and witchcraft stuff. And she turned it into like releasing a big bad. And I'm like, oh, that's like even better than what I had.
Oh, they had an Elder God in their basement.
Yeah,
Who
basically,
doesn't,
yeah,
right?
right? Who doesn't? And
I think a lot of that is like having that partnership, that trust, and someone who also is kind of on the same wavelength as you.
Yeah.
Because like I've co-GM a couple games with people too, and there have been times where it worked really well, and there have been times where it didn't work super well. Like Bill and I ran a Savage Worlds game at a con one time, and that worked super well because we both kind of have
Right.
like we're very similar. And then I ran a Wild Talents game once with Frey, and we talked about a lot of stuff. And then, like when we got to the table, it turned out like we'd also assumed a lot of things that we were that we were
And
on the
to be
same
fair,
page.
that was a long time ago.
It was.
It was like your first, one of your very first cons. That was
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, not one of the first times, but one of my first times GMing at
Yeah.
a con.
And Frey is like Zinch, the god of chaos.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And
yes, he is.
And we were running.
Frey is like what? I'm sorry. Frey is what?
It's a Warhammer reference.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, he's like a chaos.
Yeah.
He's a source of
crazy.
chaos.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have very different jamming styles, very different energies, and we were running a game that happened at a high school. And it's amazing how much we thought we talked about stuff, and we were using words to communicate, and had completely different ideas about things that were very laid out.
We used the same words.
Yeah.
How could you mistake
Yeah.
that?
It was one of those things where I was like,
Oh, that's funny.
"Oh, that's happening."
Oh, okay.
Cool.
It does. I mean, it does. That does.
we
happen.
kind of stumble on upon
Yeah.
upon something which is I think important, and maybe for all GMs, which is checking your ego at the door.
Yes.
Leaving your
Yeah.
story, leaving all that crap behind. Just
Yeah.
leave it at the door, and you walk in, and because you're there to help tell a story
Absolutely.
with all of the rest of your players.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I watched Mac transfer to you and transfer back. There was none of this like, well, I was going to do that. No posturing. None of this.
Yeah,
It just
yeah.
was fluid. The players just went with it.
Right.
Because at that point, everybody was invested in telling the story
Yeah.
and wanting to know what happens next.
Yeah.
And they trusted you. They trusted her. They were trusting each other.
Each other,
And
yeah.
it might be a bit about Apocalypse World, but it's also about just nobody had any preconceived, and we're all on this journey together. And I think whether you over prep or don't over prep, allow yourself the luxury or the joy, of discovering the story with your players.
Well, and
Because
this,
I think that's a big problem
see,
for a lot of people.
yeah.
Here's
In a lot of games.
Here's where I kind of question whether or not something like that, a round robin GMing sort of fluid GMing thing would work in like the L5R game I've got right now. The party is going around trying to collect these cursed items, and they go someplace and someone's got it. That's really all of the prep I've done. Is I've answered the question, who has it?
Right. Clearly, because
Apart-
none of us know how to figure this out otherwise.
Apart from, I think people have figured it out. Apart from creating NPCs, but none of those NPCs are really directly related to that. They're just conduits that could allow the players to discover and collect this thing.
Yeah, they're just sort of grease in the wheels there, just to keep the things moving. It's like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's like you guys are
because
stuck. Here's
I
something
have
to help.
no idea how the party is going to get the thing. I have no idea how the party's going to figure out who has the thing.
Neither do we.
Yeah.
But
great.
that's what the story. That's why you play the game instead of write a novel, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But there is that one little kernel of knowledge that I have that the players don't have. And if there was a second player at the table who, let's say we have, let's say we're moving around, so at some point I feel it's necessary to tell the player this one little fact.
Yeah.
That then paralyzes that player. Because now they know something
They're
that the
burdened
rest
with
of the
knowledge.
people don't know. So, you have the...
You mean out of character telling them, or you mean like
out of character. I'm
Okay.
saying, oh, I'm going to take over GMing for
Got
a
it.
while.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, just so you know, it has the thing.
Here's
Right?
the
Right.
Now they're suddenly, when they go back to being a player, first off, the guy who's the GM who's now a player, he's paralyzed because he knows who has the thing.
Right, and they're burdened. They're burdened with that knowledge.
And
That's
then
the
when
thing
the
that I'm
It's-
and then when the
confused about.
player who took
It's
over
not
goes
big a
sits back.
deal, though.
Right.
I mean, for some people, I guess it would be.
It is a big deal because that player can no longer contribute to the problem solving of that story in the way they could have before.
Except,
Maybe.
and this to me is a key difference, and this is the reason like I cherish the people I play with very much, and I'm very fortunate to have a lot of great players. But if you have players who are more committed to the story
Sure.
than they are to their characters,
Yeah.
then they will understand how to do that.
I'm not saying that they will metagame or that they will interfere.
You're saying
but
that they will.
They're now in a position where, as a player, they can't contribute to the solution of the problem the way they could have if they didn't know it to begin
If
with.
I know that sticking my head into that statue is
And
going to
they-
annihilate me, I'm not going to do it. Unfortunately, now I know that knowledge,
Right.
and I have to be careful not to tell the rest of the players not to do it. Hey,
Yeah.
don't.
Or maybe even worse, find yourself in a position where you would do it, but you as a player don't, and
Yeah.
you commit character suicide.
Right.
Well, but this is a very significant difference between the way you're playing. And it doesn't matter if it's traditional game or story game. You can play both either way. But it's imperative that the players know that it's basically the difference between a story that's a puzzle for the players, for the PCs to solve, versus a story that's there for the entire table to unfold.
Right.
And this is a crusade I've been on lately, is because I used to say, oh, there's the GM and the players, and I'm trying to get out of using those terms.
Oh, I've used that
and
forever.
Say,
Yeah.
So it's the GM and the PCs. All of the people are players.
Sure.
Somebody complimented Jason recently on Twitter about Demigods was so great, and he's like, well, I just had these great players. I'm like, of which you were one.
Right.
And
Well, I mean,
That's fair.
Any game that's going to be great,
yeah.
it's going to start with the players.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the way it's going to start with their
Yeah.
characterizations and the
Yeah.
concepts and stuff. I mean, if you don't have that foundation, you're not going to have
Yeah.
a fantastic story.
And for me, when I'm GMing, I have to trust my players to understand, or my PCs. See, I did it. I'm working on myself, but I have to trust my PCs to recognize when it's time to not care about their character as much as they care about the story that we're telling.
Right.
And and I try to do that for myself too when I'm playing. I know how to win this scenario, but I don't want to win because my character would never make this choice.
And that is an interesting thing. I've cotton flack for it before.
Uh-huh.
Cotton. I've cotton flack.
Just caught.
Cotton.
You caught flack.
I've cotton.
Or gotten.
Gotten flack for it before.
The word exists.
I think that it is. I think that the concept of having your character fail,
Yeah.
is alien to a lot of people that play
Yes,
games.
absolutely.
And I think that Apocalypse World and specifically Monster Hearts really plays into playing up your failures.
Oh, yeah.
and
I
playing
don't-
to them.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
Because there have been
fair.
games since at least the early 80s
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
had character disadvantages
Yes,
that
yeah.
it very
Yeah.
intentionally are meant to complicate the progress.
But they don't
of the
reward you for failing.
All 5 are.
Sure, they do.
Yeah.
Some
They
of them
absolutely
do,
do.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
in GURPS you get character points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
You
true.
get a mechanical
All 5 are
advantage
do
for
that.
taking,
Yeah.
for taking
At
those
character
disadvantages.
gem, but then after that you ignore it.
Yeah.
Well, no, but you still got to spend those 20 points
Yeah.
on
Right.
Yeah.
asshole or whatever.
Well, and like
You
storytellers.
always took that one, didn't you?
The storyteller system, doing the merits and flaws, it was kind of a start of, or not necessarily a start, but it was kind of a move in that direction as well. And and now the storyteller system with the 20th anniversary stuff, they've kind of taken on that like partial successes mode, which I think is wonderful and really transformed those games for me. It's like, a lot of us who are super into PBTA, we're like, it's the second coming of Christ, or
Right.
second coming
Have
of
some more
Gygax.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
Have some more Kool-Aid.
But
They're almost as annoying as when Savage Worlds was the new.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why are you playing anything but Savage Worlds?
right, yeah, yeah, and
We had this discussion. I'm sure right now Hive Mind is sitting there like Jabba the Hutt going,
There's a cycle, and when
Yes.
the game
Yeah.
becomes the new hotness,
right.
those who are proselytizing it eventually hit the point of becoming a little annoying.
Yeah, and it's PBTA right now. That is the current hotness, and for me it's great because it's a system that really works well with me. But I also I give credit to the places that it came from, and and it came out of Cortex, and it came out of Storyteller System, and it owes a lot to D&D as well, and so. The idea that PBTA is this brand new thing that just sprung from the brain of Zeus, fully formed. It's like, no, it comes from a long tradition. Sorry, story gamers, but it's a tradition, of games that have been slowly going in different directions over the decades.
So let me get this straight. So
Yeah.
I make a fighter, right?
Yes.
Right. A very Frazetta fighter, right?
Uh-huh.
Right. And I got a bunch of flaws, and instead of actually playing towards killing something, I'm actually going to explore my flaws, and I win the game by being a broken person
Yes.
exploring my emotional journey.
Absolutely.
There's this show you can listen to that gives you lots of great advice about that called Happy Jack's RPG Podcast.
Why would this be fun for anybody?
Basically, been talking about it for like 90
I don't
years.
understand.
To be perfectly honest, there's a lot of people it's not fun for.
That's my.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean,
that's-
there are
I'm
people
being a
who-
sarcastic dick, but that's
Right.
that's my point.
But
That's okay. They
no.
play other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally okay to
Have a
play other
GM
stuff.
who,
Yeah.
because you can play PBTA that way.
Yeah.
Like, we choose not to. Our group we play with doesn't really enjoy that type of game, but it's underneath it all, it's still just a mechanical system
Right.
that you can kind of
I
flavor
want to
and
see
play
Tomb
however
of
you want.
Horrors done in PBTA.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. Yeah.
Here is
Yeah.
your stack of playbooks.
The only the problem is he's
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
I don't know what Tomb of Horrors is.
I know Tomb of Horrors.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Not Tomb of Horrors. That was the porn.
Oh, Tomb of Horrors. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it's a whole
Oh,
different thing.
Horrors.
that should have been like a 1980s porn film,
It
right?
might have
Yeah.
been.
I doubt it
Oh.
because I back then I don't think there were a lot of porn.
Oh,
stars.
I got it. So the new Happy Jack's Nights game. Urban Shadows, Tomb of Horrors. Yeah,
Here it is.
that's the game, guys. We got it. That's what we're gonna run soon.
Can we all like dress like Hugh Hefner with the smoky jacket
Yes,
and everything, and we'll
yeah.
sit on that rock
Oh, it's
rolling thing,
mandatory.
and we'll have that like sultry jazz in the background.
Oh my God.
Hi, welcome to Happy Jack's. Nice.
All right,
You know it. God, we're old.
let's go on.
Stork, you're amazing. Oh my God.
Let's go on to the
I've always wanted
evening.
an excuse to buy a really good smoking jacket.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. They're comfortable and they
All
look
right.
snazzy.
I'll borrow one of yours. We're about the same height.
Right? Yeah. It'll work.
An email from Jonas Larson. Stu, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to sit up in bed in the middle of the night growling, "For God's sake, where are they?" I haven't done that. But I just haven't had it in me to write new letters in a while.
You know what? I got to leave it to the Scandinavians to have a great opening line,
Right.
right? I mean, that's Larson. I mean, it's really you're up there with the girl that with the dragon tattoo. I mean, that's a wonderful, awesome opening sentence.
But I'm back, ready to make amends for old sins with a question and a success story. And if you ever miss my letters again, you just have to say Beetle Jonas thrice in a show, and I'll sit up and conjure up something for you right away.
Yay.
See,
Beetlejuice,
they write in
Beetlejuice,
better
Beetlejuice.
English than we do.
I know, right?
And we even speak it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably speak it. If they can write it, I'm assuming they can speak
They
it.
do. No, they speak it better than we do. They do. They do.
No, accentless?
Yeah. Well, no. Depending on the part of Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm starting to consider myself part of the old guard. Welcome. But of the uneducated variety, welcome, that gets upset by this new host kid, Taffy. Taffy.
Taffy.
That's actually kind of how he got his name, because Taffy was a derogatory term for a Welshman,
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
and that's why we started calling him Taffy.
Oh, really?
No,
I don't remember that at all.
That's not really why.
No,
Yeah.
no,
That's not the backstory I heard. It's revisionist history there. It's,
Yeah.
You know?
Also, he is sweet
I thought it
and
had-
chewy. So
that's what I heard.
That is 100% the first time I've heard Cappy described that way at all.
I would call it more gristly.
Yeah.
Still chewy.
Like, no, super, like, yeah, no.
And I just
Gamey.
want him
He's
out.
not even here to defend himself.
I know. I love my dad.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah.
And I just want him out so we can get back to classical
I
jacks.
totally
right.
thought it had to do with the hole in the barrel. Like, I swear
I
to
know.
God, that's what I thought the whole time.
Okay, all right.
It's been, like, a long
Is your
time.
mic on?
To be fair, Jonas, Tappy's been here since the beginning. He's actually
He was
one
one of the original three hosts. right?
Absolutely. So you need to go further back in the backlog. And seriously,
Don't. It's not.
Tappy's a very important part of this. He just took a really long break, but he
Like
is
7
one of
years.
Yeah. I mean,
True.
But he
And-
was
and-
at the Great Crunch debate.
right?
That's
And
old
he's
and
always been a
legends.
font of rules and systems. He loves learning new systems.
Oh, I love talking.
They're always
systems.
amazing.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
talking
and
systems.
He's where
with
we get
Taffy.
the amazing from.
Absolutely, and he had a 7-year break in which he was able to watch and learn even more systems because he had nothing better to do.
Right.
I'm going to
Except
assume.
try to
Drugs.
survive.
Try to
Right,
survive.
yeah, yeah.
But he's come back with even more knowledge of even more obscure systems. He's awesome when it comes to knowing systems and things. Give him a grab. And you're wrong. He is one of the original Happy Jackers.
Anyway.
Go even further back.
And this is actually a follow-up to one of my earlier letters from way back. It's about the Dalek problem I had with my young son.
Daleks. I had to spray for them.
I wanted him to try out a structured world of role-playing games, but he only wanted to play his Dalek miniatures, play with his Dalek miniatures. So it was actually the only letter on the show read by Heather. That must have been a long time
It
ago.
was. I
I
remember
think
this
she was
letter
only
too.
on one
Yeah.
episode ever. A neat factoid for the Happy Jacks trivia night. And the advice I got was to wait a couple years. A couple years have passed, probably more than a couple.
Yeah. 7 at least.
It's more than a couple. A couple years have passed, and I'm glad to report that you were right.
What?
If you wait long enough, it could take millennia. We will eventually be right, at least in some small way.
Bunch of monkeys in the typewriter? What?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Congratulations, it's Shakespeare.
My son,
Eventually.
my son has finally grokked role-playing games, and it's now one of his favorite things.
Yay!
Better than packages in brown paper and wrapped up in string? Because those are a few of my favorite things.
Oh, God.
Raindrops on roses.
Right.
Whiskers on kittens. Bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens.
Where's Joey
Brown
when you need
paper
him, right?
packages tied up with string. These are a few of my favorite things.
We get sued.
I know where
We're
Joey
going
is
to
right
get a
now.
YouTube takedown.
Oh.
Their autocorrect, their auto-detect thing is going to pick that.
That
up.
was terrible. It's not going to
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
No, I think they auto-tune now, and then
Oh, God.
it's even gone so far that I will probably need to write a letter asking about how to get him to shut up about role-playing games when his dad's tired. But that's not what this letter is about. Duct tape. There is a letter in.
That's
Happy
illegal.
Jacks RPG would like to encourage
Yeah.
people not
Not
to
to
duct
duct
tape
tape
their
their
children.
Please.
I was going to take the whole roll and just stick it in his mouth.
Stu, I'm a mandated reporter. Stop it.
Happy Jacks would like to...
I would like everyone to be clear that my godchildren are not getting tape stuck in their mouths. 100%.
Even if they deserve it.
Yeah.
All
Which
right.
Allie sometimes does.
This is a letter about a success story, and I wanted to share to warm your hearts. My son, let's call him Junior, or would that be Junior?
Yes.
Junior.
Yes. No, you're right.
Is 9. Now, that's still pretty early to start RPGs. At least my kids still aren't. And asked me to run Mutant Year Zero for him.
To be fair, that is the native sort of RPG that you start with in Scandinavia.
Okay, all right.
Because it kind of came out of Scandinavia.
Okay. I told him to choose a couple friends so we could invite them, which he did. Most of the people he picked were awkwardly nerdy boys like him, the kind whose eyes grow a little too big with anticipation when you tell them, when they tell you they want to strike the orc with an axe in the head. But he also invited one of his female friends.
Nice.
Trigger warning.
Uh-oh.
We're going to talk about stereotypes.
Oh no.
This female friend, let's call her
Vanina?
Vanina? Because there's an umlaut over it.
Vanina?
His beautiful name,
Vanina?
whatever it is.
It is. Was a classic, quote-unquote, popular girl, more interested in fashion and horses than nerdy stuff like games and superheroes.
To be fair, I've used my horse girl knowledge many, many times in RPGs.
Yes.
Many times.
And I'm still waiting for my chance to play a Laser Ponies game.
Laser
Yeah.
ponies, right.
Awesome.
Well, laser pussy, and also there's like been a million times where someone's like, you grab the head thingy. I'm like, bridle. He jumps on the horse. That's actually a thing you couldn't do like that. No.
I have a small tangent.
Yeah.
I rewatched, well, I guess watched, the director's cuts of the Hobbit trilogy.
Oh.
They're longer, and they've added a lot of... Well, first off, the first movie, Unexpected Journey, is
Yes,
fantastic.
it's
I'll
good.
fight
Okay.
anyone who disagrees
Because
with that.
it's the story of the Hobbit.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like 3/4 of the story. Well, it's
And
not,
then
not
another
3/4.
like
No, it's
6 hours
but
of...
it follows the path set out by Tolkien, at least somewhat faithfully.
Yes.
Uh-huh,
And
okay.
some of that path exists in the second book.
Some.
Some, yes.
The second movie?
Second movie.
Oh,
second
yes.
movie.
All right.
But there's a scene, I cannot remember which movie it was in, where these, they might have been orcs, are riding these like undead horses,
Okay.
and one of the horses has its head cut off,
Yeah.
and the guy can still control where the horse is going.
Yeah.
Well,
And even I, because I don't shit about horses, all I know is that horses shit. And I looked at it, I'm like, how is he going to steer that?
With your feet, your legs.
yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you
okay.
100% can do that.
But he's not a Mongol.
No.
He had a bride. Why would he have a bride? Well,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
It's possible,
yeah.
but it's also weird.
right.
Yes.
I'm not going to defend that
I would
movie
expect
because no.
that undead
Yeah.
horse would have to have been trained in life to be able to be steered that way.
Well, but
right?
if
Well,
they're...
it's an undead horse, Stu. There's a lot of rules that no longer apply.
That's a very good point.
But I'm also not defending that fucking movie.
yeah,
so I
it
just,
doesn't eat sugar cubes
Are we going
either.
to beat
but-
his undead horse?
no, but let me just. We're going to beat the horse dead.
Yeah.
Raise it and beat
then
it
beat
again.
it
some more.
But,
Yeah.
but it doesn't actually die because it's undead, so you just
Right.
keep beating
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
That should be the new coined phrase: beating an undead horse.
that is 100% the new
Yes.
Happy Jack saying. So,
Yes.
yes.
That could be a T-shirt.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, but I watched the movies in the theater. Never watched them again.
Yeah.
Happened to get the director's cuts. They've added a lot of scenes that I don't remember, and I've only saw them once.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of scenes I don't remember
They cut
from
tons.
the theatrical releases.
Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
No, no,
Hobbit.
The Hobbit.
But, yes.
The Hobbit.
But close enough.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've
And
never
the-
seen those movies.
and-
Those movies don't exist.
Which is the film where Gandalf and what's his name? I want to say Ziggurat, but that's not his name.
Saruman?
No, the Brown.
Aragorn?
So and such the Brown, the wizard.
Oh,
Radagast.
Radagast. That's
Yeah.
it. Radagast.
Yes.
I thought you were doing this. I'm like, brown hair?
No, 'cause he had the-
Aragorn? I
Yeah.
know. But I was like,
Commonly portrayed by my friend Ben Waters at Fair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
mhm. Yeah.
So the two of them are at the
Exception
castle.
Paul.
The two of them are at the castle where the necromancer is.
Yeah.
And there are scenes in that where they're talking with who's the prince, the dwarf prince. What's his name?
Legolas?
No, the
No,
dwarf
dwarf.
prince.
Ah,
the
Kimmy.
dwarf
Theoden?
prince. Is it Theoden?
Kimmy,
Okay.
I just
That
got
he's
less
a king.
gay from
No.
hearing
No, no,
that.
no.
It's Gimli's father. It's his cousin.
The one leading the troop in The Hobbit.
The elf, yeah.
No?
No,
No.
wait, you
I said dwarf.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard elf.
No, dwarf.
All she
Oh, I'm
knows is
sorry.
all she knows is
Shut up.
elf.
Fuck
What's
you,
his
no.
name? Oh, is it Thorin?
Thorin.
Thorin,
Yes.
okay.
Thorin Oakenshield.
They meet Thorin's dad.
Yeah.
Did that happen in the movie?
None of that happened in the book at all.
That's all in the
Okay, I know it
Silmarillion.
didn't happen in the
Okay.
book, but I don't remember that from the film in the theaters.
Meeting, I don't know. I've watched them one time and swore never watched them
The
again.
Lord of the Rings movies or the Hobbit?
The
The Hobbit.
I,
See,
I didn't.
again, right? That's
I
my
didn't
point.
watch it.
I'm talking about The Hobbit. I'm not talking about Lord of the
No, I know.
The
Okay.
Hobbit.
They added.
I don't remember that
They
scene.
did add a lot in the.
Okay, because there's some very interesting scenes that happened with him because he's lost his shit.
Oh no, that part was in one of the movies.
Well, they mentioned the fact that he loses his shit.
They showed some of it though, and I don't remember how much of it. They probably
I don't
added
know.
more.
They're long.
Yeah.
They're
They
almost
added
3
a
hours
lot,
long.
yeah.
But there was some interesting stuff, and there was even stuff in the last one, which is one big stupid fucking fight scene.
It is.
And I fucking hate fight scenes
On ice.
anyway. Right. It's a fight scene on ice.
And the whole thing about that
Fucking
is
ice capades.
like none of that's in the book at all. Like Bilbo gets knocked out, and you don't see the Battle of Five Armies
Sure.
at all.
Right.
At all. It's
But
not
he had
there.
to fill up 3 movies.
Right, 100%.
Otherwise, he wasn't going to make 3 times as much money.
Right, exactly.
We all know that. I'm not arguing that point at all.
No.
But there were things that happened and little sort of like small scenes and vignettes in between the stupid fucking battle that takes place in Battle of the Five Armies that actually made it a little better.
See,
I'm going to tell you, it made it a little... Now, you're never going to get over the rage that it's not in the book.
Well, no, I don't mind that it's not in the book. I just, if they're going to add stuff, because they added a lot of, and changed a lot of stuff for Lord of the Rings. But they did it in a way that was tasteful
Okay.
and made it more streamlined. The only thing I hate about that is when they added the elves to Helm's Deep, which is fucking wrong.
I hate the fact that they left out Tom Bombadil.
Oh,
Yeah, I
a
hate
lot
that
of
too.
people were upset about
It's
that.
very sad.
What the fuck? You got
Yeah.
9 hours of film you can't put...
Yeah, I know.
Why don't
or
you do
even
your
the
own
extended edition you can put in
and
there.
Bjorn never showed up.
Bjorn's in the...
He's in the Hobbit.
He's in the
movies.
Hobbit.
See,
He's all over the Hobbit.
Is
In fact, I think they added scenes for him.
They did. They 100% did because he's cool, bear guy.
Right.
The thing is, I don't actually remember. Like, I've watched like so much stuff about these movies recently because a bunch of people have been releasing like theories and stuff, and I sent you a couple of them.
Right.
And
Like,
re-edits.
I've been watching them with my husband, and I'm like, honey, I've never seen the Battle of Five Armies movie. He's like, no, you did. No, we watched it together, honey. No, you did. And I'm watching.
You blocked it out like a
I
traumatic event.
100%
Yeah, it was.
blocked it out. He's like, I was like,
I'm with you, though, Kimmy.
They're
I'm with
showing
you.
like sections
Yeah.
of it. I'm like, swear to God, I've never seen that. He's like, no, we watched it. You were really mad about it.
You were so mad. It was just a
Yeah.
rage. It's just red.
Right.
The
yeah.
whole part at the end where she's like, why does it hurt so
See, now
much?
you're
And
just-
she's like cradling.
Careful, you're going to forget this
Oh,
whole
God.
episode.
I was watching an internet thing. Oh, more chocolate. Like I was watching an internet thing, and I'm like, I've never seen that. That's so awful. I would remember that. He's like, no.
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 It was
I
a
Was
real
that
thing
awful
you
the
did.
first time you saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to borrow my Amazon account, I have the extended ones.
Okay.
I didn't get the extended for the first one because I thought the first one was fantastic.
Yeah, I loved the
just
first one.
fantastic. But if you want to try to stomach your way through them, you can watch the extended versions if you want. Because I did not hate, especially Battle of the Five Armies. I hated.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it.
Even you, who
Even
are
me.
very forgiving.
But I hate fight scenes.
CGI.
It's a 3-hour
CGI
fight
fight
scene.
scenes.
Wow.
And not a very good one.
But this, I was like, this isn't as bad as I remember it being. But there's a lot of extra stuff in it, and I think Peter Jackson probably, since he didn't have to worry about a theater that has to show it X number of times a day, he can add an extra 30 minutes to it.
It's not Peter
No,
Jackson. It wasn't all him.
No, 100%. The thing is, there were 5 different studios, and this is in the videos I sent you, that are sharing the profits from the Hobbit.
No wonder.
So they were supposed to be
Probably because it was licensed out so much.
100%. So that first movie, like nobody made any fucking money on because
Well,
they were sharing it, splitting it 5 ways. So
Wait,
then
you're talking about
that's
Lord of
why-
the Rings?
No, I'm talking
Hobbit.
So that's why it was supposed to be originally 2 movies. So then suddenly fucking nobody made any money off of the first movie because they were all splitting it so many ways.
Also,
So then they were like, oh, we'll just make 2 more movies and make twice the profits, and then we'll all have money.
Also, it was prepped and set up by Guillermo del Toro, who was going to be the original director, and he bailed because it was taking too long, and all these studios wanted to cut, and he's like, "I'm done." and left.
That's what the story they told everybody.
Okay.
It actually
Peter
involves,
Jackson really wanted to step in and take over?
It actually
No.
involves the Illuminati and Lizard People.
Yes. Well,
No.
it's Hollywood.
All right.
You're not wrong.
Tinfoil
There are no
hat.
lizard-
No, but most people think that he was forced out because he is
Benicio del Toro?
like that. He
Not
was,
Benicio, Guillermo.
Guillermo
Benicio
del
del
Toro.
Toro's an actor.
Guillermo?
Guillermo. Who did Hellboy.
Guillermo?
He's,
Sorry,
such
go
a,
ahead.
he's such a Luddite. He doesn't know this stuff.
I know how to pronounce Guillermo.
If you'd only get them right.
Only you knew who he was.
Hans
Is it Benicio his brother?
Sure. They're all related. Whatever, Stu.
I
Anyway,
don't
moving
know.
on.
Anyway, back to the
So there are a lot of nerdy girls.
all right.
yeah.
Can we
That's
get back to politics?
please.
Girl more interested in fashion, horses, and nerdy stuff like that. Blah, blah, blah.
Love you.
Okay, there are a lot of nerdy girls, and fashion and horses are, of course, valid interests for boys. But
And helpful in RPGs.
Yep.
All right, that's
The
how
neat-
that all gets
Especially when you're
started.
doing laser ponies.
the Nina was not a nerd, which made her the odd woman out. Junior and his male friends jumped right into the RPG, but Vanina, I really think I'm pronouncing that wrong, was just being introduced to the concept of dice and characterization. It wasn't made easier that we unfortunately live in a society where we encourage boys to take the center stage and girls to let them. I struggled to give her time to
Acclimate.
it's not. It should be acclimate. Acclimatize.
Okay.
Is it a word?
Yeah.
Acclimate.
Isn't it just acclimate?
Depending on the tense you're in, I think acclimatize works well.
Herself and time in the spotlight. But I noticed that she didn't enjoy the game as much as the other kids. But then, near the end of the session, something happened. The kids were on top of a roof, fighting a Shelob-like spider monster. See, I know what that is because I just watched all the movies again. They were all...
The Hobbit, though. Shelob wasn't in The Hobbit. My book.
Bait them.
I'm sorry.
I watched all 6.
We only have a few hours.
And I gotta say, even in the second film, when it starts to descend into horrificness, every time dwarves come running out screaming with swords, and you hear bomb, 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 bomb.
Yes.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Every fucking time. And that's one of the problems. The third film didn't have that. They didn't use the right music.
They didn't use that song. That song is amazing, and it's amazing to work out to.
I bet.
I have an electric guitar version of that just can make me lift anything at any point.
She's
Like-
not wrong.
No.
Every time they come running out, with their bomb, bomb, it's so awesome.
So good.
Anyway.
Oh, when they sang that in the first movie.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch the first movie again. It's good.
Can we finish
Junior and
first?
his male friends.
They're fighting Shelob monster. They were all pinned down and knocked out except Vanina, who had kept in the back, was the only one left standing. I turned to her and said, "Your friends are going to get eaten soon. How do you want to save them?" That's a very leading question.
Well, I mean,
Junior and the boys started shouting out suggestions to her, but I silenced them
Good.
and told them
Yes.
to let her pick herself.
Thank you. Good job.
Vanina got a nervous look in her eyes and glanced down at her character sheet. She had picked a class called Dog Handler.
stop it.
Oh no.
I just love that there was a dog handler class. That's awesome.
But asked to have a cat instead because they're cuter.
Truth.
Oh,
Fake. No. False. Hashtag not true.
no. Plus, there's that brain virus. It's like a toxic plasmosis. Dogs don't have that.
My cats don't devour my doors either. So
Granted, I'm not saying that cats are
But if
more
you died, they'd
destructive.
eat you.
And dogs won't.
and
Yeah.
I've told my cats it's fine after I die.
No, they've done studies. Dogs will wait until they
Yeah.
are starving to death before they eat you. Cats don't even wait until you're dead. They just start, like when they come up and bite you, they're
They're
seeing
not,
if you're
they're
dead.
not
Yeah.
pack animals.
Yeah.
I know.
I bet you that's why.
Yeah.
I have told
And
my
no
cats,
loyalty.
like, when I'm dead, you may eat me. It's totally fine. Stop trying to eat me right now. I'm still alive.
There's a whole song about Mary Province, like dying in her hotel room and her dachshund ate her.
a story.
It's a song.
No, it's an actual
true.
song. No, it's an actual truth. She was a silent
Well,
movie queen.
maybe dachshunds are half
Dachshunds
cat.
are they're bred to hunt badgers. They're
How
little
long was the
bastards.
dachshund there before it started starving to death?
It may have been starving to death.
Yeah.
A weekend.
No. Well,
Well, a dachshund might starve to death in the weekend. They're very tiny.
They're bred to hunt badgers. They're bastards.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay, so she wanted to play cat instead because they're cuter. Oh, I could maybe send my cat to bite the spider, but the cat is probably small. Is too small to do any difference. I didn't say anything and readied myself to yes and. Good on you.
Mm-hmm.
When she asked me if I could use if
She, I think it's
if
supposed to
she
be a
could
she.
use the cat, I would answer that it didn't matter that it was so small. It could bite the spider in a weak spot. Could I ask the cat? That's her, I'm assuming. Here it comes, I thought. Could I ask it to fart in the spider's face so that it gets nauseous and falls off the roof?
So good.
and an epic role player was born in that moment.
Yes.
Yes, the cat can bite the... what? I coughed, unsure what to say. Is the fart disgusting? Not the best answer, I know, but I was caught flat-footed. Yes, I think so. She struggled to find the right words. The cat has been to the fart Olympics.
Only in Scandinavia.
Yes.
Loving this.
Did it win? He asks. And here's actually, I think, the best part.
Yes.
Have you seen...
Scene.
Am I in the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Have
yeah.
you seen that
Have you
scene?
seen the scene in Hook where all the Lost Boys eat, but Robin Williams can't see anything?
Yeah.
And he takes an empty spoon and flicks at a kid, and he finally can see
How the food
how
landed.
the food landed in
Yeah.
his face. It was just like that.
That's great.
This
moment.
next, I just
Right,
want to
this
say,
is
this
it.
next sentence is like, this is what a role player is. Like,
Right.
this is commitment to the story.
Right.
All of a sudden, the epiphany. The
Yes.
angels.
So the question was...
No, keep going.
The
Yeah.
question was, did it win? Vanina raised her head, looked straight at me in the eyes, and answered, no, he got silver. But that's still pretty disgusting.
So good.
And now you're sitting there and you're looking at these kids like, oh my god, I'm outclassed.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Right?
Holy shit.
Keep reading, keep reading.
They're so smart.
The table erupted in laughter. The cat saved the day, and the popular girl who loved fashion horses and role-playing was born.
Yes!
Yes.
That is the end of my story this time, but I will return with more anecdotes about how me, my son, and his friends grow closer to each other thanks to the best hobby in the world.
Yes.
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But I also have a question before I leave you.
Uh-oh.
I've started to review books on RPGs on my blog. Tell all your Swedish listeners to check out www.trevligascenarion.se.
We'll put it in the show notes. Kimmy will put it in the show notes.
I'm sure it's spelled like it sounds.
Yeah.
Trevligascenarion.
REVLIGASCENARION.se.
And I wonder if you would consider what you would consider good RPG canon. Which books about RPGs are the best? Of Dice and Men, Robin Law's Rules of Game Mastering, How to Be a GURPS GM. Any recommendations you want to share? Love your show, even the new Taffy. He just needs to find his unique voice.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend Tappy.
No,
I
Larson's
think
totally
he's fucking with
bullshitting.
us.
Yeah, he's being
He knows who
sarcastic.
Taffy is.
Yeah.
Jonas Larson, GBG. Footnote, the Beetle Jonas offer stands for all the hosts. Anyone who misses me can say it 3 times. It has to be in the same episode. And saying it while reading this letter
Aw.
doesn't count. No, the letter's over.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So
Okay.
he had a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, before we do that, I want to say, good on you for recognizing kind of the social norms that are put on girls in society and like giving her, like silencing the boys, giving her that moment to speak. Because even myself, like I find myself fighting like that what I've kind of been trained as a woman to do my whole life. And I'm a very outspoken woman. I'm a very strong woman. I've done performing my whole life, so I'm not exactly a quiet woman, but I still find myself doing that often, especially if I'm in a situation where I'm not 100% comfortable, if I'm not 100% sure what to do. So the fact that you kind of paused everything and gave her that kind of think time is what I call it in my classroom, and gave her that kind of empowerment and moment to shine is like amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yay.
Good
Super
on
good.
you, Jonas. Yeah, that's it. That's amazing to like. That can be the massive difference between some girl learning to find her own voice or not.
Right. Absolutely. Because you can, because there's definitely times where you might feel like, let them give her suggestions. Like that'll help her feel more comfortable. And I think that if like they just told her what to do, she probably would have just picked one of their ideas and gone with it, and you wouldn't have had that amazing, like what you were saying, like hook Robin
The
Williams
cat fart
moment.
never would have happened.
Right?
Yeah.
None
No,
of those
only
boys were
Silver.
that smart.
No
Like,
way.
They were never gonna.
And nobody expected the cheerleader girl to come
Right.
up with cat fart. No,
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody at that table went,
What? Yeah. Well, and the boys like this, and this is a big deal to me. The boys, if they had come up with that, and he asked, "Did it win?" would have said, "Oh yeah, it won gold."
Oh, yeah.
But no, she
picks diss ads right away, even
Right.
for her damn cat.
Yeah.
Right?
She's like, no, it won silver.
Yeah.
That's still super disgusting, though. It was
No, it
like-
only won silver, but it's good enough.
Right, yeah. That was just like, yes. This
My
girl
cat's not
knows.
fighting a dragon. I mean,
Right? Yeah. But, like,
But now, after it's farted in the face of this spider, maybe it'll go back and win gold next
exactly.
in 4 years
Yeah.
in the next
Right?
farting
It's got the
Olympics.
confidence.
All I know is I'm picking that cat up like little Jack Shack and like squirting it at things from now on and running into whole armies.
Yes.
Oh my God. Anyway, so yes,
Yeah.
the question, continue.
Books.
Well,
Books.
I was gonna say real quick. So, like, I work in a female-dominated industry, and I have my whole life. Like every job I've ever been in has generally been one that where like I've mostly had female bosses and female coworkers almost exclusively. And and I get this all the time. I'm on set, and like I'll just be on a show for a day. Like I'm just showing up there to help with something random. Like I'm not even important. I've never been on the show before, and like a producer or a director will come up to me standing next.
Assume you were the,
So I'll be standing next to my female costume designer and my female costume supervisor and the female lead
Your
set
boss.
costumer. My boss
I'm standing next
yeah.
to your my boss.
Yes, my boss and my boss's like second in commands, and some dude will come up to me and start talking to me, having never seen me before, and I just stare, like I just slowly like turn my head, and I just look at my bosses, and I just ignore, like, don't fucking talk to me. I like. Talk to the women who actually know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
And also check your privilege, you male asshole. Like, like it's rampant in our culture. Like, not teaching women that their voice matters, and like this little moment could completely transform this girl's life.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
it's beautiful.
I really love the fact that when given the chance, she came up with a very off the wall,
Right.
Really, because everybody was guiding her this whole time, right? And when
Yeah.
he finally said, "Everybody, shut the fuck up," what do you want to do? She came up with the most amazing solution, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even the person you least expect,
And probably
Yeah.
the solution that the boys at the table
Would
thought
never-
was way funnier than anything they
Yeah.
came
Oh,
up
yeah.
with.
or
Yeah,
even more
absolutely.
creative than they would have
Right.
come up
I
with.
mean,
They were
come on,
like,
boys and farts, right?
right?
This girl knows her audience
Yes.
too.
She and given that opportunity, given that moment where when he said, "All right, shut the fuck up. What do you want to do?" She came up with an amazing solution.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
it speaks to Apocalypse World, which is at this point, and even he was like, "And you, well, what?
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to roll with the story.
Yeah.
This is their story. I see. Here we go." Awesome, truly awesome.
RPG books. And I think he's more talking about
Like
about
GMing advice
playing.
books.
books about role-playing games, not role-playing.
You mentioned one earlier.
Yes.
in
And
Never
another
Unprepared.
context.
Never Unprepared.
There's actually a few. First, how to be a good, how to be a GURPS
great
GM
GM?
or a good GURPS GM.
By Mook.
That
Mook,
yeah,
yeah,
the
Mook's book.
West Coast Guru GURPS wrote that book.
And that was number one on my number two on my list. The first one was actually Never Unprepared, but yes,
Yeah.
but Mook incorporates all of that stuff, and you can actually find a link on the Happy Jacks forum under just type in Mook and look for it. It's there. He's written a very concise. It's not really a book. It's a pamphlet.
It's a book.
It's a book.
It's a book.
It's a
Remember,
book.
it's big. It's
awesome.
8.5 by 11.
It-
So if it was smaller, it would. If it was a
And even if
digest
you don't
size,
play
it would be
GURPS,
big.
because people see the word GURPS and they just move forward, it is basically a Bible for how to GM a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great at it.
He
too.
really is. He
I'm lucky
truly
enough to
is.
be playing.
Everybody I've ever sent the Mook's way has come out going,
That was a great game.
"That was awesome.
I like GURPS.
I am now enlightened." It's not even just GURPS. It's like I am now enlightened as a
Yeah.
GM.
Mm-hmm.
You would love it.
Yeah, I would like to read it.
I'm going to send you the.
I have the
I-
copy.
I will read it.
I
Should be in a
actually have a
Mook's game.
hard copy of it.
Oh,
I'll let
cool.
you. I can let
Yeah.
you borrow my hard copy.
One of my this is my go-to for people who are new to GMing, and it's specifically PBTA, but to me it's the best of like how to GM, specifically with PBTA, but it's got such great advice for any kind of GMing. But the Monster of the Week book. Like you don't have to pay attention to like how that particular game is run and what the specific rules are for that, but the GM section on how to create a mystery and how to roll with the punches and how to adapt to the story, like because Monster of the Week is more prep heavy than any of the other PBTA games, and so it's just. It's a great primer on or primer, whatever, on how to understand how to be an adaptable GM. And
Right.
so I find it extremely valuable.
You're really good at that.
I will.
You're really good at that.
In most role-playing game books that I read, I will almost always read their section on GMing because you always find a different perspective or a different take that might have to do specifically with that system, but very often it's just really sound advice.
Yeah.
It's just slightly different advice than what you've heard from other games.
Right, yeah.
So that, I mean, generally that's a fantastic, though expensive if you're going to go buy a
Right.
bunch of role-playing game
Yeah.
books.
For example, the rule of three. I think that you picked up through Gumshoe, right?
No, the rule of three came from the Alexandrian
right.
guide.
I was confused these two, but Gumshoe still has that wonderful mechanic about if it's an important clue, just give it to them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right, and which I've taken, adopted, and owned, which is like, all right, and rather than bogging the game down with a bunch of dice rolls, like just give them the clue. Here we go, and we're moving on.
Right.
And it's D&D 4th edition is often lambasted, but there in the GM section there's this beautiful segment where they talk about different types of players and how to give them what they want, and also how to keep them from going in the bad directions. And it's just a really nice section on like these are the different kind of personalities or game or player types that you're going to encounter, and some ways to deal with that for good or for bad.
Yeah. Folk72 in the chat room is suggesting Focal Points, which is one
That's
of the
one
Gnome
of the
Stew
other
books.
ones. That's also
Yeah.
well, Never Unprepared I think is a Gnome Stew book too. I think.
I don't know.
I don't think you're
If
wrong.
it isn't,
no, it is. I think
because
so.
I think Phil had something to do with that too. But yeah, that I've read that book as well.
Yeah.
Because they sent me a review copy of that. I've not read a lot of books on GMing. I read Role Playing Mastery by Gary Gygax. I would not put that on my list.
my advice for GMing, and I don't GM very much, but my advice for GMing is play as many games as you can.
Yeah.
And expose yourself to expose yourself to as
Not
many
like that.
GMs as you can, because you will learn from every game that you're in.
Yeah.
It's astonishing how many different styles there are and how many different ways to approach or even solve this same problem. I love going to see how GMs running even a 5e games are their styles. I love to see that, and it's amazing. You always come away with sometimes with what not to do, which is almost more important than what to do.
yeah.
I think get out there, get in the mix, and see things. You can read a book, that's fine, but playing a bunch of different games by a bunch of different people, you will learn, or at least make up your mind.
And also, like you can't just read. I mean, this isn't what he's asking, but you can't just read about role playing or GMing forever. And then one day you're going to start, and it's going to be perfect. You do it by doing it. Like you've got to run games to get better at running games.
You find your voice.
Yeah, exactly.
And these tried and true rules, they often have to go out the window in weird situations.
Oh, yeah, they do.
You are even regardless of how prepared you are and how much you've studied. You're not ready for the players.
There's a thing. It's an ethereal thing, and people have talked about it and worded this, but there's something called style that you can't quantify or qualify or stuff. It's just something that happens through repetitiveness and doing stuff. And Stu has a GMing style, which is very different than Adam's style, which is very different than Kimmy's style. And none of them are wrong or better. They're different. And your style needs to happen by just doing it. You just need to get out there, and eventually you come up with a way you solve your problems, you handle things, you do stuff, and it's a style. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just something you have to do. You can read all the books you want. They're not going to give you your style.
But he wants to review books. That's why he's asking for books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I was just being so much more.
No, I'm the same way. I'm like, I want to talk about this topic, and and I'm like, oh wait, that's not the question.
We can't give you any books to review. You got to find that in your own.
Right. Yeah.
Hamlet's hit points. Not as much a book about GMing, but a book about story pacing and the up and down beats of stories, and he really kind of breaks apart not just Hamlet, but there's one or two other stories I think in it that he breaks down and talks about where the up beats and down beats in the story happen and how you can kind of structure a story so that it has those high points and low points and is a satisfying story. And I think it would take a lot of practice, but I think that is something that can be applied to GMing. Because there are those moments where it's like, okay, we've hit a low point, now maybe something, maybe a comedic interlude or something.
No, it absolutely can, because I watched Adam do it, and it's too bad he just left, because we heap more praises on him, but he will definitely tell when there's a low point, or he knows when there's a moment, and he'll stick the characters, all of a sudden, that voice. So, you guys think you're comfortable, you think you won. Oh yeah? Here's your demonic voice. That's that little twist.
That's sort of what Hamlet's hit points is about.
Well,
so if you want to review that book, that is a fantastic.
It's about storytelling. Yes.
All right, 10 Candles.
All right. I'll read this one.
It's short, isn't it?
Atlanta.
I don't know.
Atlanta.
Hiya, Stu. I hope to run I hope to run a session of 10 Candles sometime in the near future.
I want to run it again, by the way.
Yeah. Maybe as a filler when we don't have enough for a regular gaming session.
And not fuck up the last.
I was thinking of ways to enhance the experience, and here's what I came up with. Set the bowl and candles in a lazy Susan so each player can get to the candles without catching sleeves on fire. Use magician flash paper for traits.
You know what? I think
but don't tell the PCs. That's how people die.
No, he didn't. I think that's what Tomes wanted to do, but they wouldn't let him do it at the hotel.
Okay. Have a red filtered flashlight if something needs to be seen or read, or a bathroom trip. Don't destroy night vision like a white light.
Right.
Doesn't destroy night vision like a white light.
Right. Yeah, it's like submarines.
Yeah. A remote Bluetooth speaker connected to the GM's phone tablet to play the occasional footstep or whisper from across the room.
And the messages they do in the very beginning of the game that you play at the end.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned the PCs find the recordings from a previous game. I love that one.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you for running a one-shot of 10 Candles. I never would have heard about it if Happy Jacks had not AP'd it. Raise a glass in honor of those that passed before us. Steve from Atlanta. Huzzah.
Cheers.
Yeah, we should arrange maybe on a one-shot Saturday or something. I can run that again with different players.
I am dying to play this game. I have still not been able to play it.
You know what? I really want to do it like on a camping trip.
Yes, that would be so cool.
It's a total Boy Scouts around the campfire kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I really
When
want to do it with
Zachary's
my
a little
kids.
older and he goes to Boy Scout camp and
You know,
summer, it's like,
you will-
okay, Zach, here's 10 candles.
Yeah.
No. You will be like the most popular
Oh, yeah.
scout master.
Run this. Or they'll never let you take their kids again.
They terrified the crap out of
Yeah, because this is scarier than any fucking ghost story would ever
Right.
be.
That's why I have Zachary do it. That way no one...
Yeah, then no one can do that. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I love those ideas, and it's such a fantastic game.
It really
Especially
is.
the flash.
It's a lot of fun. It's interactive. As a whole, it really.
Although
it just gets darker and darker.
he mentioned the red light, flash paper is going to screw with your night vision. Because all of a sudden it's like...
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of the thing.
So like this incandescence all of a sudden, and then...
Yeah.
Oh, God.
There's,
Yeah.
Then there's paper-shaped dots in your eyes.
You know, back in the day when it was only D&D, this never would have occurred to us.
Oh,
and,
no.
and now role-playing games have morphed into this thing where it's now a total immersive experience.
Right, yeah.
And everybody's okay with it. It's cool. You know what? It really isn't that far from sitting around a campfire and telling a story.
No, it's not.
It really isn't.
Well, and I tell people, like, when I play role-playing games, it's a cross between cooperative storytelling and improv theater.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I play, and there are just some rules. And my friend
You have a randomizer. That's it.
yeah, exactly. My friend Cameron McNary, he runs the Play Better podcast, and he's he DM'd for me years ago, and like we've been friends for a long time, and but he wrote this play called Of Dice and Men. And and it's fantastic. And there's an independent movie that they made of it as well. And but in this play, he describes role playing to his friends as it's rules for playing pretend.
Yeah.
And that's just so essentially what it is. It's just rules for how to play pretend.
Because adults want rules.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, even kids want rules too, because oftentimes it descends into argument.
And
Well,
just
what
arguing.
if? No.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the randomizer.
Yeah.
Okay, and off they go again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like when Allie used to do stuff like that. She's a walking rule book. No. I'm going to arrange everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she got that
Girl
from her
after my own heart.
She got that from her godmother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Steve.
Proud of that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Proud of
Yeah,
that.
same.
She's a
Con
good
game
woman.
etiquette. You want to
Con
read
game
this?
etiquette.
Right.
One of
Whence
three?
to-
Because I'm not sure I am.
All right.
Whence to bail.
Dear Happy Jackals, I'm writing with a question/horror story that happened in January at my local fantasy sci-fi convention, MarsCon.
They had me at Horror Story.
All right. Two friends and I had signed up to play in a GURPS fantasy game. No, it's not going to happen. Oh, okay.
Yeah! No, it's a horror story. I don't like it when GURPS is involved in horror
on
stories.
GURPS too.
GURPS, yeah, GURPS.
I hate it when GURPS is in horror stories.
Yeah, this is like GURPS and Bjork. Like those are the like I have to pronounce them
Like you're
that way.
passing a stone.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So sorry. When we showed up, we were greeted by 4 other players who had signed up as their own block, hereafter known as the Gang of 4.
Oh, God.
And the GM. I got the last pre-generated character left on the pile, the thief Dai Blackthorn, D-A-I.
Oh, not Blackthorn.
Okay. Oh, so they're using the pre-gens. Because Dai Blackthorn's been a pre-gen in GURPS since first edition.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
okay. Interesting.
He's the thief character.
It's really unfortunate
Yeah.
if you get a character named Dai
All right. yeah.
Blackthorn. I mean, really.
Yeah. Which at the time I thought was lucky. Who doesn't like to play the charismatic light-fingered thief? But turned out to just be foreshadowing of the problems to come.
There you go.
Yep, yeah. The game began. All the PCs knew each other and were returning from a successful mission to whoever our employer was when we came across a small village that was trying to surround itself with some hastily built palisades. Upon further inquiry, we were told every night the village was attacked by packs of large, preternaturally intelligent wolves. As the theme of the con was werewolves, all players exchanged knowing looks, capitalized, I like that.
It was Mac and her family.
Yeah, it was Mac and her family.
MacCon 2018.
Yeah, right, yeah. And agreed to help the town that night. We fought off the wolves, and the morning started tracking them back from whence they came. We arrived at a large manor deep in the woods, and my character, the thief, got sent forth to investigate. While nosing around, I came around a corner of the house and was face to face with a girl in her very early teens. "Hello," she says. "Who are you? What are you doing here?"
Oh my God, did she have green hair? Run!
Run! Yeah, she's terrified.
It's Mac.
Immediately, the Gang of 4 started screaming, "Kill her! Fucking kill her!"
Oh God.
As none of my character's disadvantages said anything like sociopath, I talked to her instead.
Oh my God.
I love this letter, by the way. I fast talk a lot, so no alarm is immediately raised, and she invites me into the house. The Gang of 4 has not been pleased with any of these developments and is still exhorting, "Kill her!" Long story short, they were a nightmare to play with. The Elven Ranger broke into the upstairs to steal panties out of one of the bedrooms.
What the fuck?
Oh God.
Where's that X card?
Yeah,
Yeah.
X card, fucking gross. Don't be that guy.
It's frat boys.
Yeah. There were jokes about the Elven Ranger's sexuality due to his Fey background, etc. Again, don't be that guy. God. The game ended with us saving 2 of the 20 mind-controlled women and werewolves who lived at the house.
2 out of 20.
The rest dying in a fiery inferno created when one of the Gang of 4 lit the alchemy lab in the basement of
Of course they lit it on fire.
Because earlier on they were saying that one of them was trying to light things
Yeah,
up.
trying to light
Yeah.
things on fire, yeah.
All players at some point will light something on fire.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But
It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah.
Dust off a nuke from orbit.
it takes a special group of assholes to do it and murder 18 women.
Oh,
yes,
sure.
yeah.
That's just kind of after stealing their fucking underwear.
Well, they were
Yeah.
trying to learn to read. It's like a Saudi Arabian girls' school.
yeah. Oh God. Jesus Christ. Because I'm reading this right? Like
Yeah.
women/werewolves. So
Yes.
all the werewolves were also women.
Yes.
Mind-controlled women.
All of
So,
the werewolves
yeah.
were women.
They're
So-
mind controlled.
Yeah.
Mind-controlled werewolves
So
women.
also, like,
They're all victims.
yeah. So Gia, maybe also, like, don't set it up like this,
Yeah.
also.
No, put the alcohol lab in the basement.
No.
You know they're gonna light it on fire.
You would think that at some point they would go, oh my God, they're all victims. Let's help. It's the most. It's like,
Well, some of
Yeah.
them clearly had sociopath as a disadvantage on their
Right,
character
yeah.
sheets.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I don't think it was on their
But
character.
also,
No.
you know, when you're at a con with a bunch of horny nerds, many of us who don't get laid regularly, you know, don't set up a situation where you've got a bunch of helpless, mind-controlled women to take advantage of, and then expect your players to actually like do the right thing.
it is true. It is a woman in a fridge, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, they already had a panty raid.
right.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, like the minute that happens, like that's when you start like.
At this point, the GM's like, all my prep is gone. What
Right.
do I
Yeah.
do now?
Like, yeah.
Hopefully, this GM wasn't planning this exact thing because it takes a special kind of GM to be like, I know. I'll put panties in their room upstairs, and you know what? It's a great idea.
No.
20 women who
Right.
have no like
No
actual
agency,
consension.
no-
It actually carries
or
on.
agency.
The,
Yes.
the GM was not to blame.
So,
Okay.
final paragraph. The GM didn't seem to like the Gang of Force playstyle, but his disapproval only manifested by giving me and my character time and attention over telling these jerks that they were, well, jerks. My friends and I let the Gang of Four know we thought what they were doing wasn't cool, but they didn't really seem to care. After the game,
I'm
one of-
shocked.
Shocked, I tell
There
you.
were 4 of them.
Notice I'm clutching my pearls.
What are they going to do?
After the game, one of my friends said that if he'd been by himself, he would have left rather than continue to play with them, which is what prompts this question to you. Is there some generally accepted con etiquette for when it's okay to bail on a game?
Yes, there is. You text all your other friends at the table, and then all at once in unison you say, "We all have diarrhea. We need to leave." And you get up and you go.
No, you say,
Okay.
this is bullshit.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, you call that shit.
Oh,
Because then otherwise
Sure.
they're like, oh, God, they all ate together. They must have all
Yes.
eaten something bad. And it's not us. We're not the problem.
Right, yeah.
It's like, you're a bunch of assholes. Your game is awful because you somehow thought it was okay to have this giant house of, like the sorority of victimized women as your play area for this game. And this
Yeah.
total crazy murder fantasy shit is not my scene. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
oh, sure. Well, I mean, yeah, that's not going to change them.
100%.
I mean, you're not going to fix it. It's not
No,
gonna fix
you will
anything.
not. But you
No.
can't fix them. But that might change the GM. So maybe next time they run a con game, they
Oh,
don't.
maybe
run
he'll
something
be
like
more.
that.
Maybe he'll be
Right.
more assertive.
Yeah. Or maybe not put 20
right.
sorority of victimized werewolves
Yeah.
together like that.
Right.
Maybe might not be a thing in the next game.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you.
You know, why are they all female?
Yeah.
Right?
It's
It's like-
Because the GM is part of the problem.
Yeah. Yes.
'Cause despite him being like, oh, that's not cool, he also made a sorority of victimized werewolves with mind control.
But he may have. I will defend the GM in this position.
Okay.
He may not have assumed that he was going to have sociopath players.
Right, but again, like if you have a community of werewolves,
Yes.
why are they all women? Except if you're a GM who's like, I'm going to sort of fetishize this
Right.
this house of women.
He may not have even been thinking that.
Well,
Maybe.
it doesn't matter, but the point is that he's not thinking of it, and so he's creating this situation by his casual non-understanding of his own misogyny, essentially. And I mean, misogyny is a little harsh.
He may have.
but
Not, this may have been something that came completely out of left field for the guy.
I'm certain it is.
But he wanted
But-
That's like, what if it was just one, and it just happened to be a female who was being victimized rather than a male?
okay, I
You
mean,
see what I'm saying?
These are assumptions, though.
Are we, well,
Because he does say
we don't know.
it was all women.
We don't.
right, but
Right.
he wanted them to be victims.
yeah.
Or they had been victims.
Right. But there's not you cannot distinguish those two with the trope of women being victims and Princess Peach in the tower who needs to be rescued, and creating a game where everybody who needs to be rescued in the game is female.
Right.
Like that's a thing that very easily is connected there. He definitely probably didn't expect these guys to be assholes and want to murder them all.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't think
I don't
you
think
can
so
blame
either.
him for this situation.
No, you can't. But
because that's what we're talking about. He's not the one that. I mean, maybe he set up a situation that could be exploited by people who are sociopaths.
That's what I'm saying.
You cannot blame someone because of a society's least common denominator.
Right.
That is
but
true.
If you're running a game at a con as a GM,
Okay.
you have to be careful because you
You
know
never know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
You're
so
right
if you
there,
were
yes.
because okay, this is a situation where if I'm playing with people I know, okay, I know they're going to be respectful of this. But if you're hey, let me have this sorority house of mind-controlled women who are victims. Let me put them out here for strangers who, at a con, even in a lucky day, you're going to get at least one asshole at the table. It's just it's like serving up a bad.
Go ahead.
He's
He's been
No, I'm letting Kim
Take a
talk.
breath. Take a breath.
But I feel like because I can guess what probably went through their mind was I'm going to be playing at a con and I want to have some moral ambiguity in the situation. So if all of the werewolves are women and they're mind controlled, then maybe that will play on the largely male audience, and they'll be like, oh, well, actually, let's not just go in and murder hobo them.
Yeah.
Let's explore this and explore this interesting story point.
Right.
Which is a noble idea.
Yes.
However, the casual, the sort of unawareness or lack of awareness about how that could be turned into a really misogynistic situation is unfortunate. I'd say unfortunate.
I can turn eyeglasses into a misogynistic. I really can. I can turn.
I see.
Oh, you're wearing eyeglasses, huh? Yeah. To protect your eyes from what? Right? Guys will do that.
Yeah.
I just think it is unfair to ascribe malice to the GM.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
it's not
I agree.
malice
Yeah.
on the part
Yeah.
of the GM.
Because
it
you
is
never-
a lack of awareness.
Yes.
and yes, who knows how many times this guy's GM'd.
Sure.
You GM enough times at cons, you get enough of these kind of people,
Yeah.
you know what kind of things to stay away from.
Yes.
Or
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
fire people from the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had to do
He may
that.
also have set up the classic trope, which is go rescue
Rescue the princess.
the people,
Right.
the people,
Yeah. Right.
And maybe he had a backstory about women which he couldn't get to because the frat boys overrected was why only women are werewolves, which is an interesting thought to me. It's
Yeah.
why are there
Could
only
be.
women?
Yeah.
Right, and maybe that was another plot point, but he couldn't get to it because the frat boys took it
Yeah.
over. The GM isn't necessarily to blame. No. Yes, he set up a definitely a situation that could be
exploited by sociopaths.
or just it perhaps could have been
But if your mind's not there,
tone deaf. Perhaps
you're not.
but-
I mean, who knows how many
Right.
times this guy's GM'd at cons?
Right.
Yeah.
He may have been just as victimized by the other
I
players.
guarantee you, he had 4 frat boys show up at his game
I don't
and
think they're frat
dominated.
boys. They're not frat boys.
Well, okay.
No,
100%.
frat boys don't
I
play
use
role
frat
players.
boys. I use frat boys as a term here, not necessarily the fact they were part of an actual frat as sharing the one mindset about.
Frat boys as a metaphor for bottom feeding cave dweller assholes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should say, I'd known frat boys, and I was in a fraternity myself in college, and did not consider myself to be a bottom-feeding.
Oddly specific.
Although I was in a service fraternity, we didn't have a house or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
And our fraternity was co-ed.
Yeah, who'd you service? Anyway,
It was Alpha Phi Omega. That's the Boy Scout fraternity.
I was in Alpha Psi Omega, which is the acting fraternity.
Ah, yes, Alpha Psi Omega.
Here's
yeah.
to Alpha Phi Omega, boy, your brothers we.
So
I didn't do.
sorry.
I didn't do any Greek shit. I was like, those guys are.
Our fraternity was the least fraternal fraternity ever.
Well, and sororities are fucking mean. Like, I didn't want any of that shit.
Well, ours was co-ed.
Oh,
Ours
okay.
was
I didn't
co-ed.
know.
frats are mean too.
And it was
they're guys,
it was
so we just do it.
Alpha Phi Omega was set up for Boy Scouts going into going into the college.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's
It was
cool.
a place that you can meet with other scouts, and it's Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and you don't actually have to have been in scouting.
Oh, that's cool. But yeah, I think
And we actually did service stuff.
that's cool.
All right,
We
so
also
you're
sat around.
justified.
We also
Anyway,
sat
the
around
rest
and
of
drank
us.
beer.
By the way, Matt says to drink.
Oh,
Yay!
I think I'm out.
No.
no.
All right.
And he concludes, and I
Oh,
love
wait,
you
we're
for
not
this,
done?
Matt.
No.
I have the honor to be your obedient servant. M.at.
Very nice.
Thanks, Matt, for giving me that chance. Really.
I
What
started
is that?
on
Auditioning
the-
From Hamilton.
With
With a nice tenor
Yeah.
voice.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
I don't have $1 million to go get tickets for the fucking show. What do you
You
want?
should listen to it though. It's really good to listen to.
Believe me, I've heard every fucking note in that goddamn thing from my kids.
Okay, good. That's because they're being raised right.
Yes.
But then I
yes.
ask them anything about Alexander Hamilton, and they don't know shit.
See, the fourth graders in my class were all super excited, and they all checked out books about him to learn about him.
Oh, yeah.
Aw.
My children did not do that. My children aren't learners. They're instigators. They're not.
The world needs
Yeah.
both.
Yeah, I mean, back to your actual original question,
Yeah.
you can get up at any point during a game if something like that's happening.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and be like, hey, GM, thank you for running this game. I can't deal with this shit that's happening.
What if you're the GM and you want to leave your own game?
No, you
ha-
tell them to leave. You kick
No,
them out of your fucking game.
I've actually
Yeah.
had games where I'm like,
You know,
I don't want to be
that's
here
kind of
anymore.
an interesting question because, I mean, your con needs to have some sort of policy about that kind of shit. Otherwise, you could, as the GM, if you kicked players out of your game, that might put you in trouble in some way. They could go make a stink.
Yes, and
know what I'm saying?
Also, it's like, at what point do you draw the line as a GM? Like that behavior is unacceptable. You guys need to stop. And they're like, well, we're just
I've
role
had
play.
to do that in my games.
It becomes
Have you?
Yeah.
I had one event.
slippery slope.
I had one event happen where I don't want to talk about it specifically,
Yeah.
but there was someone who had a subject matter that for them was a very sensitive thing, but it's not something that you would necessarily assume would be that. And someone else made an offhanded joke about it.
It escalated.
It never escalated. It never escalated. It made a couple of, came up with a thing about their character that had to do with this thing. It wasn't something that I would say was like super insensitive. It's just, had this player known that this player had this thing, I'm sure, absolutely sure, because I know this person would not have said that.
Sorry about that. Let me know what I did.
No, it wasn't. And I'm sorry I'm being vague because I mean these are people I know and the people who watch the show. But I mean, it certainly wasn't intentional. It certainly wasn't with malice or anything like that. And that's a sort of situation where the other player came up and just happened to mention, I've been going through this and that, and it was a little rough. And I'm like, in that kind of a situation, I mean, it's like, the X card is all well and good, but what if you don't want to talk about what the thing is that you're talking about?
Right, if you have an X card and everybody's all of a sudden...
In some ways, it's kind of a lame tool. It's like, we're going to talk about something I don't want anyone to know that I've ever had to deal with. We can't talk about that thing.
But now all of a sudden,
But
people are
now
like,
suddenly...
that's a thing. Oh.
Well, and
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this is something because the five of us playing the Monster Arts game, we've talked about this a lot, and because there was a moment in a recent game where it wasn't sexual or anything, but there was an emotional moment, and several of us were like inches from like reaching for the X card because it was very. It was emotionally traumatic and bringing up some bad things that some of us had dealt with in high school, and none of us actually
That's
did
why I don't
use
think
it,
anyone
but-
should play that game. But go ahead.
it's not helpful.
It is not for everybody. No, but
Why
anyway.
on earth would I want to revisit high school?
That's another topic we can
That's
talk
a
about.
whole nother
that.
topic, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's another topic we'll have to do. Teenage stories, and
Without
or
a skilled
childhood
therapist
stories.
there
Yeah.
to guide you through it.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
But one of the things that's really pivotal about the X card is that as it's designed or as it was originally conceived, if somebody taps the X card, you stop.
Yeah.
You don't discuss it. You
Oh, so-
don't.
no,
yeah.
yeah,
You don't. You know, it's just okay, somebody tap the X card and like, boom, we're done. Let's move on to the next scene. And
I don't think when I say the X card is a lame
Yeah.
tool, I mean it's kind of like a blunt instrument.
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
like
it is.
it's like a hammer in a tool bag where there should be more tools than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And there should be maybe more subtle tools than that because you may have someone who's like, this. I'm dealing with this thing.
Yeah.
It's no one's fucking business that I am.
Right, yeah.
And they're going to assume that I am if this happens.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm even uncomfortable just stopping the conversation
Yeah.
Right.
because of the fact.
Right.
And you can't judge someone on something like
No,
that.
absolutely not.
And so it's a hammer where there should be
Yeah.
other things. Maybe
yeah.
myself, if I was GMing in a situation, because I very rarely, but you never know.
Right.
You very rarely play in games where anything about like blatantly inappropriate things in games it just don't happen.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because I mean, most of the people who come to my games at cons, they know they've listened to the show, they know how I am, and there's I think at least an understanding that there's certain kinds of topics I don't fucking deal with.
Yeah.
Let's just have fun.
Yeah.
And this is not going to be fun for pretty much anyone except that one sociopath, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, personally, and maybe this is something I'll do in the future, I'll just put my cell phone number on the back of the GM screen or set it up somewhere and say, hey, everyone start a text with my phone number in it.
Here's
and
the
if something
Slack
happens,
channel.
text me an X.
Slack me now.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
You know, and that
actually.
way I can just have my
Especially
phone there
cons.
and I get it, and it's like, the scene's over.
Right,
and they
because-
don't have to know who it is.
Because
Things, things can happen in the scene, which will then telegraph to the rest of the people in the group that what it is that sets them off, and now all of a sudden questions are asked, and that can
Oh,
be
that,
Right,
well,
yeah.
the question should never be asked.
But people may be awkward to hit it because it's
Right.
like it's like you walk in and find a girl in duct tape,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and now everybody's like, oh,
Well, especially at that table of strangers at a con. Like,
Yeah,
usually, if you're playing like
exactly.
ourselves, like, okay, yeah, I'm cool putting an X card down because I trust the people here to like respect
Right.
me enough not to be like, oh,
Yeah.
like. But if you're at a con, especially us, like with people who are sometimes pseudo strangers, like they know a lot about us, but but we don't know a lot about them. Sometimes it's like it can be hard to be like, oh, okay, and there've been times at a con game like where I had moments like where I didn't where I broke down because we didn't have X cards and we had problems. And
there again, that was not malice. That was something
100%,
that happened
yeah.
in a game.
Yeah.
And it
couldn't
literally,
have-
and she would never have known because it was a thing that had happened at work. There was a car accident at my school, and one of the mothers of one of the students, I was one of the first responders, she died.
it's made the news.
Yeah, and it was like crazy. And then I went to a con game and I was playing Grimm, and Bill, who's one of my best friends, and like just had planned his game. And at one point, there was a little girl crying for her mother.
And it's a game about children.
Yeah,
in
so
horrible.
which I should not.
positions.
I should have invited him to play that. But then it was like, oh fuck! Like I was
you
sitting
lost-
there.
yeah.
I was like, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm sobbing and running out of the room. Like,
yeah.
So it was one of those moments where, like, even if there had been like an X option, like I wouldn't have had the emotional wherewithal to pull it. But
Right.
like. Yeah, being in that situation in a con, like with other not weird, but like other people at the table, they're all weird. I'm weird. Like, made it really hard. Because,
I'm not
like, I
weird.
feel like if I'd been at a game with
totally
my friends, like, it would have been, like, better to sit and, like, talk. Like, okay, everything's okay. But, like, I just, like, wanted to get out.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
Sure.
think if, like, having that anonymous option is a great idea.
Well, and I'm not a con gamer. Like going to Strategicon a couple of weeks ago was really my first game con ever, and I just played in 2 games. But
Was it fun?
it was. Yeah.
And did you meet more and have a interesting time?
I did, yeah. I actually met a lot of the Happy Jacks listeners,
There you
which
go.
was a lot of fun. Which, good segue, Tomes, who I met at that. Tomes in the Carefree High section of the forum, there was a discussion about X-Card, and Tomes had brought up an alternative thing that has to do with, like, rewinds and fast forwards and stuff like that as another option, and there was
that's
some
cool.
discussion about whether or not it was good. I don't know all the details.
He's a
but-
very
but
smart
go
man.
look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he
Tomes
plays a
is awesome.
lot
I
of
really
leading
liked
edge
him.
games.
He does.
That's where we
Oh,
heard
okay.
about 10 Candles. Was
Oh,
from him.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah. So as an outsider to con games, my feedback on this is, like, if you're not comfortable at a game, like I don't care. Like, get the fuck up and walk away. It sucks. Like, if you're leaving a game in the middle of it, but it's not up to you to make everybody else's experience perfectly seamless in order to, by sacrificing your own.
You gotta take care of yourself.
Your own frustration.
And as the GM, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, like if you're feeling bad and it's something you don't want to address, because some of us don't deal well with confrontation. I'm not gonna call somebody out and say you're playing like an asshole. Like, I would rather just. I would just do a quick nod to the GM and grab my stuff, and I would just go and I'll go talk to you later, and if I see you and say, hey, this is what happened, but for me, it's I'm not dealing with confrontation. I'm just gonna get up and I'm gonna leave.
I like confrontation. I like how people. I thrive on confrontation.
I have not, since we've started doing. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s when I was going to game conventions, there was nothing but inappropriate behavior. But since we started doing it with the show, I don't think I've ever had any. I don't think I've ever needed to.
I've had to a couple times in my games as a GM. I've had to call out people for using inappropriate terms for people.
Right.
And I've had to be yeah, you can't say that at my table. That's not okay. Use this word instead, or we can't talk about that. And then there have been times where they started down a path, and I'd be like, hey,
we're not going there.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Have you ever kicked anybody out of a game?
I haven't. Usually they kind of are I'll say something like that to them. It's because I have a lot of practice with fourth graders, so it'll be this is not an option. I put on my assistant principal voice, and they're just oh fuck.
Well, yeah, it turns out people who want to take things in inappropriate ways don't like confrontation either.
No, they don't. Yeah. So you just, I'm respectful, and I'm this is not okay right now, so we're going to do it like this.
Yeah.
So it's I give them the option of, here's how you appropriately do it, and hopefully they'll take it as a learning moment. It's a teachable moment.
Yeah.
And usually, even if they don't really register it permanently, they will then respect that. I've never had anybody not respect that for the rest of the time at the table.
Yeah, I would imagine that's usually going to be the case unless you're dealing with
because everybody else then is
someone who's got real problems.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. 100%.
When Dave and I have GM'd at cons, and I've only GM'd together, co-GM'd. We've had people that have been wrench throwers. Perhaps maybe not even, maybe on altered substances when they've been in the game, and it kind of ruined the game, or at least taken it in odd directions.
Yeah, I've played with him
never
too.
had to to a point
where
I've never been to a point where I'm you need to leave now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I'm not sure as a GM, if a player packed up the things that went up and left, if that wouldn't throw me. I'd be like.
Oh, sure, it's gonna.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right, we're done now.
You're gonna. The first thing you're gonna wonder, unless you saw what happened or you've registered what it is that caused it, you're gonna assume it was you if you're GM.
Of course,
almost always.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, what the fuck did I do?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Oh my god, my game must suck.
Yeah.
Right. Or clearly I wasn't monitoring the situation well enough, or because ultimately would land.
Maybe you're kind of not.
Well, yes, and I think if my player just got up and left, I was in a game. It was a Shadowrun game, and it wasn't necessarily a bad game, but the person had an agenda. It was very laid out. Things were going on. He was very much a everything. If this, then this. If this, then GM. Right. And I was not having fun. But you know what? I stuck it out again because I learned more about what not to do.
Yeah.
Than what to do. And
horrible examples are still examples.
Everything that could go wrong, everything I don't like about a game was in this game.
Yeah.
It went long, the guy was a dick,
That's
his
different.
friend, but I wanted to leave. But I thought to myself, if I leave now in the middle of this, the rest of the players are going to be pissed off. I'm just
or maybe they're going to go, I wish I had the courage to do what he just did.
maybe, but at some point I'm already invested. You can't just because it's kind of a dick move to just get up and leave.
It is,
and as a player,
it would be a last resort too.
It has to be egregious.
I think there's two different things. A not perfect game is not a reason to get up and leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
People being assholes and actually being insulting is a reason to get up and leave.
Yeah.
Those are two very different situations.
Here's the thing. This
100%.
Like if I'm at a con game and everybody's making jokes about the one character being gay because of his Fey ancestry, and everybody's laughing at it, and and saying words that I don't want to hear, like I'm sorry, if
are you going to get up and leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I would get up and leave, and and I would say, "That's Mr. Faggot to you. I'm out."
Yeah.
Like fuck off. I deal with that enough in regular life. I'm not going to deal with that in my fantasy world. Like,
fuck no.
I came here to have fun.
Yeah. And and if I was a woman at this game, and they're like, "I'm going to steal her panties," I'd be like, fuck off.
Yeah.
And this is why you never get laid, asshole. And bounce. But I agree. It's an egregious thing, and it would have to be an extreme thing.
Because you're leaving the rest of the players who are also equally wide-eyed, going, "Why are they doing a panty raid? Why are those 4 guys doing a panty raid?
Yeah.
Fuck."
But but like this particular situation, like if I'm there with my 2 friends and there's these 4 dudes, and I'm not sure what I would do. The confrontation would be very difficult, but I would probably either text or whisper to my friends I can't handle this anymore, and and if they weren't into confrontation either, I'd be like, I gotta go.
My whole take on it is it's only a 4-hour game. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sit back.
Yeah, but
you
don't
notes.
have to deal with that every day in your real life.
Right.
No, I don't.
So it's one of those things. It's like
I don't know, and I don't know.
Yeah.
You are correct about that, but it is only 4 hours.
You're also talking. Your original example was a shitty game.
Yes.
Not
a game that's
a game with horrible people.
Not a game that objectifies you or mocks who you are.
If the game's just
concede that.
Yes. Like I've been in games, home games, and
not great, or there's a player who annoys the shit out of you or whatever.
Yeah. And it's it's fine. Like I'll stick it out. I will find a way eventually to bow out of the campaign, but I'm not going to leave in the middle of a game and not let anybody know why I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But but a con game to me, and again, I'm a con neophyte. So a con game to me is like I paid for the privilege of being here. I'm here to explore some things, and if this is what's happening and they're not putting a stop to it, I'm not.
Right.
I don't.
Yes, but again, I'll play devil's advocate. It's only a 4-hour game. You could sit it out, wait it out, and then take notes later and go.
Why put up with 1 hour of abuse?
Yeah, but at the end of the thing, you can go sit. I am a gay man.
Yeah.
I'm a heterosexual woman. I found this game offensive to the GM later and said this and this and this and this and this.
But
it was awful.
I think because
I don't think you should have to suffer.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to. It's your choice.
Specifically,
I guess, to leave or
as
not
a
to.
woman, women are very much raised, and it's changing a little bit, but very much raised to worry about the collective well-being rather than our own well-being.
Yeah.
We are taught, okay, let's not make waves, be nice, make everyone around you happy. And that's something that I'm working hard in myself, and get girls in my classroom and all these things to be you need to worry about yourself and your self-care. Mm-hmm. I'm objectified in every day of my life.
Yeah.
And walking down the street, all these things, and I shouldn't have to when I'm at a con. I'm even walking around a con, I'm fucking objectified. To an extreme there.
It's your famous story about walking into the game store.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are doing something. Why is it so quiet?
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's just seriously. It was early on.
When I sit down at the table, if these guys, the first thing they start doing is objectifying women and making women whatever they do, describing the shape of her breasts and shit like that. I'm like, I've got a pair. I don't need to sit here listening to you, fantasize. It makes me uncomfortable because the next thing, because I know what's happening is they're describing that, and then they all turn and look at me.
And it's just going to get worse. There's no way to get out of it.
And either I measure up to their fantasy or I don't. Either way, I am now a piece of meat that they're all looking at, and I shouldn't have to sit there and deal with that.
Or they're literally trying to fuck with you.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. It's
or not fuck with you.
Or
literally trying to.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So there's just so many, and it can become so uncomfortable, and it's I don't, yes, you're right, it's only 4 hours. Have I sat through worse things for 4 hours? Absolutely.
Why?
I've gone to a gynecologist appointment. I've been through much worse.
Right, yeah.
So.
My last 2 weeks,
I should not have to do that when I go at a convention?
Again, I don't know. I'll have to take your word. I don't know.
I mean,
I'll take your word for
I
it.
went through a 4-hour tympanoplasty, which is where they repair your eardrum.
oh God.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't want to do it at a game con.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
All I know is that I went through a colonoscopy and they knocked me out for it.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
all I can say is
You know
kudos
what?
to you.
I did not get knocked out for my colonoscopy. I was awake for the whole goddamn thing. I just didn't care. They didn't give me the fall asleep drug. They gave me the don't give a shit drug.
Oh yeah.
I hope you bought the Surgeons Around a beer.
You can
Go in
literally
there.
feel the water.
Go in there. Those are
All
some
right.
brave people.
I think I've preached enough.
The lunkers.
Yeah, right, it's the lunkers. See, as a gay man, a colonoscopy is like, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, that's a long way. I mean,
Oh, now you're bragging.
I'm sure colonoscopy is it's a long way. I mean, you're going to have to be way on the end of the bell curve.
Oh my God.
Sorry. It was a cheap shot. It was right there. What was I supposed to
So
do?
Oh my
good.
god!
Holy crap.
All right.
I think that's a great place to end.
Sorry.
We're not topping that.
Sorry, guys.
Where's, there it is.
You know what? It does bring up. Maybe Nick's your biggest fan.
Biggest fan.
All right.
God.
I'm gonna close it.
Thank you for joining us for season 22, episode 4, Happy Jack's RPG podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
He's probably not bragging. Have you seen his hands? Look at his hands. Look at his hands. They're huge. They're huge.
Who are you? It's your turn.
I said my piece.
Dork.
My name is Adam.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And we'll leave you with a song.
Yes.
And don't forget, Sunday we've got Bloodblade and
Bloodblade
Tusk,
and Tusk.
our character generation session.
Check out happyjacks.org/schedule.
We're going to go get a bottle of
It
oxygen
really is
for
a
Adam.
good GM.
We'll leave the song. Thank you.
I wake up each morning to a good cup of ale, and then without warning I'm drunk without fail. So pass him the bowl and he'll pass it back dry. I'll drink from this bugger from morning to night. So pick up your tankers and give 'em a lift. The juice of the barley is God's greatest gift. So drink it all down with bottoms up high. Pass me the bowl and I'll pass it back dry.
As a man of great piety, I drink none till noon. Hence I shun sobriety and drink till I swoon.
So pass him the bowl and he'll pass it back dry.
I'll pray that fine ale rains down from the sky.
So pick up your tankers and give 'em a lift. The juice of the barley is God's greatest gift. So drink it all down with bottoms up high. Pass me the bowl and I'll pass it back dry.
My remarkable girth requires much ale. About a keg's worth puts me on my tail.
So pass him the bowl and he'll pass it back dry.
I'll fill up me belly in the blink of an eye.
So pick up your tankers and give 'em a lift. The juice of the barley is God's greatest gift. So drink it all down with bottoms up high. Pass me the bowl and I'll pass it back dry.
Me Colossus proboscis loves ale fine and rude. I'll subsist on barley without want for food.
So pass him the bowl and he'll pass it back dry.
For me nose knows no repose when good ale passes by.
So pick up your tankers and give 'em a lift. The juice of
field filled with great toil. I'll celebrate harvesting right from the soil.
So pass him the bowl, he'll pass it back dry.
From the first day of May till the end of July.
So pick up your tankards and give 'em a lift. The juice of the barley is God's greatest gift. So drink it all down with bottoms up high. Pass me the bowl and I'll pass it back dry. Pass me the bowl and I'll pass it back dry.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Bum, 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 bum.